Welcome to bLU Talks Amplify Your Message. This is day one, and I am joined by my co-host Belldon. How do you say your last name? Is it Colme?
Colme, just like that. Perfect.
Perfect. Awesome. I'm going to introduce myself, then I'll ask you to introduce you, and give me a minute, and then I'll go share the live in the Facebook group. So for those who have never met me, my name is Laura Lake. I am the host here at bLU Talks Amplify Your Message, but I also have my own business where I believe in courageous connection. Where that came from is the whole get to know people or get people to know you, like you, and trust you, and then they'll buy. Will they? Nah, there's like a whole thing before that about getting to know you, that old version of you, creating a space to have your audience get to know, like, and trust themselves. That's what courageous connection is about. So I help you tell your stories better so you can actually connect with your audience, the people that want what you have. So Belldon, can you tell us a little bit about you so that we know where you're coming from with your questions today?
Oh, absolutely. My name is Belldon Colme. I'm a health scientist, and I've made it my life's mission to help people understand how their body works instead of all of the propaganda and the big words that everybody tells, and bringing those complex ideas down to something that everyone can easily understand is my superpower. And that's where I come from when I talk to people as well. There's so much going on in each of us. And to get that to a point where everybody can understand it, I think is just the coolest thing in the world. So I'm so excited that you invited me to be here with you, Laura, and to take part in this process. I'm just super stoked.
Oh, there it is. Now I found it. Okay, so share. So if you're listening right now, I encourage you to go to Facebook and share it with wherever you are. So share to, yes, my friends. I won't let me share it to a group. Oh, no. Okay, so somebody will
love Facebook until we don't.
Share it to the Amplify Your Message group. So I will continue to wherever you guys went.
You gotta love Facebook right up until you don't.
There you are. Okay, I'm back. All of that just to be back. So our first guest is behind the scenes. Luis, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us. Thank you. I always like to ask because you never know when something is going on and you just need a moment. So Luis, welcome to the stage. I love to start off interviews with a not so secret question, just to shake things up and we get to know you as a human being first. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm going to grab a pen to go with my paper. Okay, Luis, if you could have other people describe you in just 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Well, love, or what would I say?
Oh, no. This is why I worded it this way. What would you love them to say?
I think of myself as a happy person, that I smile all the time, and that's probably part of my personality. So that will be one thing. Mm-hmm. I care about people, and I always try to help people if I can, mm-hmm. and in different ways. And also, I thrive to be better. I think over all my life, I've always tried to improve, to be more efficient, but also to be a better person, which is what I believe. So it's a combination of becoming a better professional and a better person at the same time.
Nice. So, of course, the follow-up question is, how do these words or these phrases, and I'm going to repeat, I wrote them down. How do these words, happy, caring about people, and thriving to be better, how do they play a role in the key message that you have for people?
It's very interesting, and thank you for that question. I think it's the first time somebody asked me that. My background is in corporate finance, economics, and numbers. For 27 years, I worked in corporate finance. I reached the position of CFO of large multinational corporations. But I always took care on the people that work with me. And I remember once my one of my bosses, when you when you work in large corporations, you have like 5 bosses in 4 different countries. So it's kind of, a very complex situation. And one of them always said that every time he called, I was over with my team. And then he will call back again, I was over with my team. So sometimes he will complain that he will never find me. And when he asked me why, I said, well, companies report numbers, KPIs, products sold, but they are created and done by the people who work for us. So unless we take care of the people, the companies will not be as good as they should be, or they wouldn't have developed their potential. So I always believe that taking care of people, your team, your close, coworkers, um, would have given better results for companies. And I believe in that. And I started working that years ago, probably I would say 2010, 29, more or less. And I started seeing how can I make people perform better while at the same time being a better person. And it all related to I think two basic areas, which are personal motivation and positive attitude. And if you work towards those, you start combining your best in the personal life, and then you will give your best as well on your professional life. So it's about how do athletes compete at that very high level of energy, concentration, and stance, and of course we're not be able to do that 365 days a year, but we can do it most of the time. And when you combine certain things that we will probably talk about it, it's I think it's the best combination to create a space where we can all share our ideas and work towards the goal that everybody's working, but in a better sense, in a better way, and doing it more friendly all together.
I like that. The personal motivation and the attitude. I can't tell you how many times, even in corporate, because I worked corporate as well, where the attitude of the people really did determine how productive I was going to be or how efficient I was going to be. I could think of countless times where I'm like, I don't really want to talk to that person, but I kind of need to talk to that person. Or you're like, you work better over there and I work better over here. So what is it about the people that...
I don't know how familiar you are.
Sorry?
I'm sorry, I don't know how familiar you are, but in the 1930s, 1940s, we had the Napoleon Hills and Earl Nightingale and Dale Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie, who started all this Carnegie training and the Carnegie Institute. And they came up with, what they call the Carnegie Triangle. And it gives you three areas of your self, where you can actually hire people, decide who you're going to work with. They are your knowledge, your abilities, and your attitude. And that was almost 100 years ago. So you can imagine how powerful that is.
Yep. The knowledge, abilities, and attitude.
Yes.
Countless times.
I got hooked on one. I
want to tell you horror stories, but I don't want to tell you horror stories. Go ahead, Belldon.
I got hooked on one thing here that you said, Luis, when you said perform better while being better. And I hear what you're saying, the attitude and the way the attitude plays in. And yet, any of us who have been in corporate America know that they very often define attitude a very different way than we might want to, right? Attitude is defined so many times on how well you adhere and how excited you are about that spreadsheet and the bottom line. In other words, it's their attitude that they want you to display, not yours. So when it comes to, I'm just super curious about this, when it comes to performing better in a corporate scenario while being a better person, how do you as an individual, or how would you recommend that an individual assert that being a better person into the corporate equation that's so bottom line driven?
It's bottom line driven, as you say, and it's a very complex world, the corporate world. You talk about corporate America, I might talk about corporate Venezuela or corporate Latin America or corporate Europe. It behaves more or less the same. Companies want the same. They want to achieve, their goals. There may be a percentage share of the marketplace. They might be number of units sold. They might be launching a new product with a lot of innovation. So all the companies have their goals, and the departments, the areas have their own goals within the company, and then the people should have the goals within the areas within the company. And once you really realize that we're all working towards the same goal, but not too many times it's shared. Not too many times people tell us what we are supposed to do, particularly if you're in the low stages or the initial stages of your career. So I believe today that the vision and the purpose of the company has to be shared. They have to be shared with everybody. You remember years ago or decades ago where the board of directors went 3 days away, they came up with a business plan and they came up with this strategy, and that was what we were going to follow. Now it has to be done with all the employees or with the people who might be a say to that, or they might take decisions. Anybody who manages resources, and today we have, the resources are the same as usual, like capital and talent, but now we also have to manage time, and it's a series of processes that you need to start improving. And once you share the vision and the purpose of the company, and then we have a shared goal all together in the department area where you are, or in the country where you are, at the end we're all going to be working towards that same goal. And it is just setting the pace, setting the idea, setting the time frame, setting the resources we're going to need, or the people you are going to need to work to, and then it's putting it all together. And once you start doing that, we have to become, first of all, accountable, because not too many people are accountable in today's world. Second of all, you need to be sure that what you're doing is what you're right. I always tell people that they need to be happy at the work they have, because you're spending there, a very large percentage of your day, but not only the time, the hours, because we've known that forever, is the mindset that you put into how you do your work. Is a student that leaves everything towards the end, or is preparing for the finals a couple months beforehand? Is the company that is preparing an event they know they have in July, whether you do it in June or you start working right now on that? And in order to have everything working perfectly, you need to be preparing perfectly. And we seldom do that. So it's a combination for me of different ideas of knowing where we're going, that is sharing the purpose and sharing the vision, is having the right tools like the assets and these resources, and how we're going to use those, how accountable we are going to be, and that includes how productive you are. We need to measure the performance of our team and ours as well, and then come up with the KPIs that are really the real indicators. Not just a number, it's just the indicator that the company will have to go through, and it all combines into having the better people at the right place and working towards a better goal. And it's just it sounds a simple combination. There's a lot of work to do.
There is a lot of work. I like that you said happy doing the work, that's a mindset.
Yeah.
Yes. Can you tell us more about why that adds to people's productivity and efficiency?
Well, it first of all, I think it has to do with your mindset. That goes back to how motivated you are to live and to confront life, and what's your attitude. Professor Carol Dweck from Stanford, she's made an amazing study on your mind, on the mindset actually, and she came out with the concept of the growth mindset years ago. And the growth mindset allows you to see things differently. While the fixed mindset, if you say it's impossible, you are right, it's impossible. Unless you want to change that. Remember Henry Ford said, whatever is easy to do is also not easy to do. And it's just on our mind. We have to come up with the answers. And if you have a growth mindset that allows you to see the world different, then we are able to create, we are able to improve. And talking about performance, because it ties very well with that, is how you do things, how efficient and effective you do things. And if you just do it, just to have it a check there that, yeah, I did that, I passed through that exam, or I submitted that work or that proposal, for that reason, nobody's going to hire you. If you do it, with the passion that is required, it's like when we see Usain Bolt running 100 meters, we know he's put everything into that. Michael Phelps, all these wonderful athletes. When you see an artist performing in a concert in front of 50,000 people, they have to do their best, because if not, you're going to go out and request the money back for the ticket. Because you want to see the best you can, and the best will be your best performance, whether you are an artist or an athlete. But in the corporate world, how do we measure the best performance on a continuous basis? It is probably a little bit more complicated, but if we put all the right tools, we put in the abilities as we discussed before, we put in the right mindset. Just imagine the kind of company you can have. We've seen those companies. We've seen those companies grow or disappear. If you have a growth mindset that allows you to have flexibility, to adapt to the changing market, to understand the trends, and to be able to foresee a little bit into the future, you are going to have a better company than the one that doesn't.
I found there was two main groups of people that I experienced in corporate. There's the ones that I'm just going to call them grunts. Like you give them a task, they just do the task. Like that's all they want. That's all they like to do. It's like just, okay, good, check, done. Okay, good, check, done. There's those people. Then there's the other people that are like, okay, I have to get this done. How can I problem solve? Because it's not as easy as just check, done. I have to change, think, understand, manipulate, and then they will try to do it with permission or not, depending on, of course, your working circumstances. And then they can do the check and get it done. Whereas if the other person came across anything that wasn't easy, they would stop, ask questions, maybe, and then just follow exactly to a T what you said. I'm very much the other person who would try the do, and yet I worked with one of the other people, but together we worked really well together.
Yes.
I was like, oh, do you find that there's a lot of separation between people like that in corporate, or do you find that there's a lot of people more in the middle?
There was a study made by Gallup about, I would say, 15 years ago that they repeat every other year. And it says that only 30% of the employees are committed.
I could see that.
And the rest will be either like not interested, not. They, as you said, they just go there just to do the work they have to do and leave at 5 period. There's nothing else. And there's the other people, and that's probably about 50%. And then the other 20% who are, well, in the study, they say that feel miserable at the company.
Oh.
They are probably the people that are never happy anywhere. But when you see over time, you have, and we have to understand we need people for everything. You need clerks, you need people to do maintenance, you need people to cut the grass or to clean the spaces. But you can do it convinced that you're doing a great job, or you can do it just because you have to, and somebody's going to pay you for that. So there's a big difference. And when you see all all the steps, all the stages when you're going up in the corporate world, you see exactly the same. For me, as I said, I worked for 27 years on a corporate finance areas, and then I moved into business performance coaching. And basically, what I wanted to do is help people learn the abilities to actually perform better. And of course, not one thing or two things; it's a combination of issues.
Mm.
And that's why they go through your personal self, then to your professional self. Because if you're one of those persons that doesn't care about the company, doesn't care about the world, you just go there because somebody's going to pay you, and there's not even the need to invest in you. No courses, no training, because you're going to lose all the money. But if you do that for a person that wants to grow, that wants to prosper, that wants to improve or go or move up the ladder, well, that person is unstoppable. So how do you combine the best assets that your company has into being able to put it together towards towards the best people? And it doesn't mean you're going to forget about the others, because as I said, we need everybody. You need the office clerk, you need the receptionist, you need all the things that are probably in every single company. But then you need the people who are going to come up with the new ideas. Usually, when we think about the best products, the best services, well, they are created by the company. But the company is everybody that works at the company. The company can be a franchisor in Guatemala, like the Happy Meal in McDonald's, or the people at the company could be the guys at the University of Florida who wanted to eat double hamburgers instead of one. So they came up with the double whopper, for example. So it's ideas, the ideas that come up, and how you're going to implement those. It takes time, because in corporate world everything will take time, but at the end is how open you are to the new ideas. And if you put it all together, Laura and Belldon, it's how can we start making the corporate world closer to our needs, and closer to what people had to use at that particular time. When we see the technology, when we see the evolution of all of that, when you see the machines, and Belton, you said you're a health scientist, when you see all the technologies now used in hospitals or in clinics, and the improvements they've done. But now in communication, years ago, we wouldn't be dreaming about doing an interview, the three of us, and being able to look at ourselves in different parts of the world. I'm in Venezuela, you are in the US. So just imagine all the tools we have, now we have to put them together to work in a better place, in a better way.
Just so you know, I'm in Canada. Belldon, where are you?
Currently in Maryland, and it's funny that you say that, because in 2 weeks I would be talking to you from the Philippines. Another day I would have been talking to you in Las Vegas. Last week I would have been talking to you in New Orleans. And we can do this no matter where we are. We can still do this.
Yeah.
Because somebody said that we need to be communicated. And today we don't have there's all this talk about tariffs and economic issues and international commerce, but there are no borders today for communication. There are no borders today for technological growth, or for people moving from one country to country, or for anybody who wants to study just to log into one of these platforms and learn from the best universities in the world. So technology has allowed us to do that, and we have to take advantage of that.
So why have you zeroed in so much in the human potential, the business coaching side of things?
Because and this is my personal belief,
Of course,
if we do our best all the time, it's like the typical question or the typical phrase people tell us, oh, you only have one time to create a good first impression, or something like that. I know it in Spanish, but you only have one chance to create a first good impression on somebody else.
Yeah.
Well, so let's suppose the three of us are getting into a plane. We don't care if it is the first time for the pilot or the captain or the 100th time. We just want to go to the other place and land safely, right? So going back to the athlete, we expect these amazing athletes to win and to win all the time.
Mhm.
And we expect a new football coach for the season that will start in the summer to win the championship for the college. So there's always a high expectation. Why can't we have that for ourselves? Why can't we have that for our team? So if we have great expectations for the team, they will start believing it. And if you share that expectation with them, they will start doing things that show you that they also understand what it is. And that all has to do with, reaching your best potential. About 40 years ago, the company Johnson & Johnson created a program they called the Corporate Athlete, actually to see how the people at corporate could work at the same level of performance as these wonderful athletes. Of course, for us, it's impossible to be at that level of performance and concentration the 8 hours a day you're working. But imagine that if we are there at a certain level at a certain time in our company. Of course, it requires the overall concept of health today, and Brendan Belldon should know more about this than us. But it's not your physical, it's your mind, it's your emotional, it's your nutrition, because it all combines. And they came up with a program which is a very interesting program that is not if I'm going to train you what I train you on. Is the whole overall concept of well-being, and now apply it into the companies, the corporate areas. And if we put all this, of course there are many issues that go into this, but just imagine that we don't have to imagine. There are real companies that do that today. There are real companies where everybody wants to go and work for, because you want to be there, you want to feel the atmosphere, you want to feel what it is to work at these either large technological companies or the very large research centers, or the very large companies that operate all over the world, because they give you a sense of belonging that probably other companies don't give you. But they also have something else. They want the people that work there to improve, to be better, to reach their goals. And if we all do that, the companies will do better. And if the companies will do better, the employees will do better. So it's all, everything has an effect on something else.
Yeah.
Can I ask
Well,
a little bit different? Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead.
I'm wondering, Luis, especially when you get in these areas in corporate world where things tend to go sideways and it just gets hard. What do you draw on for your own happiness? What do you draw on to stay that happy person, even on those bad days when everything's starting to go sideways?
And on top of that, you have your boss in some other country that is actually complaining all the time because we didn't reach whatever we were supposed to reach. So I know everybody, we've all been there, right, Belldon? I think it's when we fail, what do? We can either complain or blame somebody else. That's what people usually do. It's 95% of the time. The other 5% will probably just start thinking, I don't know the word in English, but it's just, why don't we go over what went wrong and start seeing how we can improve? And of course we didn't do it right there. But when companies go sideways, it could be because many reasons, but let's suppose that there's inflation today that we didn't foresee. and inflation is making our products more expensive, so people are not buying it that often. So instead of waiting a year to confirm that that trend was going to continue, which it did, by the way, why don't we anticipate what happens if this continues? Can we go 10 months without selling the number that we were supposed to sell? Can we decrease our expenses? You know, companies do two things when things start going bad. They fire employees and they lower the marketing budget. They shouldn't do that.
Nope.
We need to find new creative ways to reduce our cost, but never reduce marketing investment, because then if you're not selling, you're going to be selling less, and you don't want to get rid of a lot of people, because if anything bounces, then you'll have to hire them again. It's a whole process. So what do we do? What do we need to do? We have to go into the processes of innovation, because innovation, we all think it's a new product, it's a new service. No, innovation is a new business tool. It's a new business model, or it's a new process. And when you start going down into the processes, let me tell you, every time you're going to find something that you can improve, that you can reduce, that you can change to do it better. And if that better means that the product is going to have a lower cost, it will have a lower price for the client or the consumer. And at the end, it's one of these circles that starts to expand, not to decrease, and it generates more income. It generates more value or wealth, or in your case, it generates more well-being. So it's just a matter of how you're going to look into that. Are we going to see failure as a real failure, or the challenges as a real failure, or as people say, if you fall down 7 times, just get up the 8th time?
Yeah.
For me, again, it goes back to having the right mindset.
So, Luis, I just want to make sure that we know the different ways that you have chosen to share your message, because there's the typical speaking, writing, podcasting. Do you do any of those? Do you do other things beside those?
Yeah, well, I've been in several books where I write chapters about leadership, mindset, entrepreneurship. But I've been a coach. I've been a business coach for about 15 years, even though I've come in and out of corporate later. I trained with Brian Tracy on business performance, and I worked with him for 5 years at Focal Point Coaching. Over the past 2 years, I've trained and been with Jack Canfield, becoming a success principles trainer and coach. So, that's again the combination. I think it's the better combination, because I've studied and worked on performance, and now I'm studying and work on success. Mm-hmm. Performance for your professional, success for both your professional but also your personal life. When you put them together, just imagine the potential you have. Again, going back to the human potential. So when you start working around this, is how can we create a better place, a better atmosphere where people start doing better things. I have to find in English a better word, that are better or improving, because for example, I work for a company. I'm a business coach and a success coach. I work for a company. We have we have 3 levels of people. We have the coordinators, we have the sales department, and we have the managers. They all have different needs. Yeah. They all need different either training or guidance. But what is the company looking? That all of these 3 groups differently, they start doing things better, first of all, by their own, and then together. Because if the sales team is working better, the company improves. If the technical and technological area is doing better things, they have more clients that will stay with them. If you have more in the financial side or in the administrative side, and you improve the processes, everything, the turnover is going to be quickly. So it's how do you adapt all these new possibilities and knowledge, like what I do, putting together performance coaching, business performance coaching, and success training into a program that allows the company to thrive, for example.
Mhm.
So it's a combination of different things. And over the past 15 years, I worked as a coach, as I said, but also was the CEO of the Venezuela American Chamber of Commerce here in Caracas. And we had to travel to the US and to other countries, doing everything that relates to investment and trade and commercial activities amongst the countries and the US. And it's you start meeting wonderful people, and you also start getting a lot of good ideas. So it's how do you put together these ideas with the people, with your company, with the market you're in, and trying to solve the issues that your company has. We are not going to be able to solve the world issues, but every single country is going through inflation, through a little economic downturn, through lower personal income or disposable income, through less confidence in the markets or on different areas in the country. So we are all there. Companies are there. It doesn't matter which country you're in. People feel the same. Doesn't matter which country you're in. So how do we start doing things a little bit different? Again, it's not firing the marketing people or lowering your budget. It's improving in ways that are different and that will allow you to thrive in different areas.
So Luis, we have about a couple minutes left. I want to make sure that people know where to find you and, of course, your favorite way to communicate.
My company is called Incrementum Academy. So the website is incrementumacademy.com. You can find me at LinkedIn, which is, I think, for me, the best way. It's Luis Vicente Garcia. And of course, I want to help people, not only in Venezuela. I do work with different companies in Latin America and the US, because we are all in the same position. We need to improve. We need to perform better. We need to have the right attitude, the right mindset, and start building in ways that our people, our teams, our families are going to actually be better at the end.
So we have about 30 seconds. I like to hold space at the end of an interview, just in case there's anything on your heart or in your mind that you just need to share. So what would you
asked me about human potential. I think human potential, it's a very complex concept, but we all have the possibilities to make it happen. And you can do it within your family, within your teams, within your company, and at the end we have better solutions and a better positioning for all of us.
Awesome. So I will call this the official close of the interview part, but I would like to invite you to stay for a few more minutes because I like to do a little bit of a recap. So I'm gonna start with you, Belldon, and then we'll go around. What is something that stood out to you in our conversation today?
I love the comparisons to athletes. One of my favorite athletes ever was Shaun White. And if you remember this guy, he came onto the scene. He was a kid. He wore kind of scrappy clothes, and he broke every record there was. And the one thing he had going for him that all of these seasoned athletes didn't have was he was having fun. He was just having a lot of fun. And that attitude, that happy, I'm here to have fun attitude, allowed him a competitive edge that nobody had with all their waxes and all of their special gear, right? And he blew him away for 2 years until on his third time to the Olympics, he started building a brand. And once he started building a brand, he got stuck into all of the mire of the numbers and the data sheets, and all of a sudden the performance was gone. And so when you talk about being a better person along with being a better performer, I think that's brilliant. There's just no better place to be than wanting people to have that kind of happiness and joy and passion in the work that they're doing and what that's going to do to better them as a person.
What kind of sport was Shaun White?
He was a snowboarder.
See, there we go. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you, Belldon. What about you, Luis? What's something that stood out to you in our conversation?
Well, how often you went back to the human potential and the mindset concept? I think those two are very, very related. And Belden, just to complement what you just said, a person decides to go to the Olympics and he won't be able to go to the Olympics in 2 years. He'll go to the Olympics in 8 or 12 years. So just imagine it's an 8-year preparation just to go to your first Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to do so many things. You have to be a member of the team. You have to do the times exactly, what they are required. You have to compete all over the world. I mean, you have to do a lot of things just to go to the Olympics. And at the end, imagine that we at the corporate world, at the social levels, at the academic world, start seeing ourselves as competing at those high level, challenges. So we can do certain things differently, and the difference will be noted.
I like to pick on the personal side of the business because that's where I shine. That's where I find all the patterns. You had mentioned the word belonging, which was huge. I'm like, how many corporate people feel like they're in a space where they belong to a community or to a family or whatever word that they put on that? I did have that feeling before corporate. When we switched to corporate, we kind of had a little bit of that, but the definition of it changed. It was no longer a family, but it was still a community. And then as things began to change more, it felt less and less like a community. So that feeling of belonging was huge for me. I like to bring that up. So thank you so much for joining us and for, of course, sharing some of your favorite parts. I want to say thank you for being here.
It was a pleasure, Lauren and Belden, to meet you and to talk to you. Well, let's hope we continue this conversation.
I love it. Bye, Luis.
Pleasure, Luis.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thanks for
You're
the interview.
welcome. Yeah, we do have our next guest in the background. Ilene, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us. Awesome. Hi, Ilene.
Good morning.
Okay, I have to ask first. There is I can't think of the word, apron. Oh, there we go, behind you, which is really cute, complete with pockets. Is that you? Did you
That
make a
is
little
me,
cartoon of
and
you?
that is my new entrepreneurial product, the Ilene pan, which I can give you the story behind it.
Oh, we'll get there. I do like to start with a question just to shake things up. I don't want your elevator pitches. I want to know who Ilene is.
Yeah. I do not like an elevator pitch. I'm a kind of stare girl, if you know what I mean. Free exercise.
So I think you'll like this question then. So here's what I ask everybody. If you could have other people describe you in just 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Fun, exciting, and unexpected.
Ooh, you knew those just like that. Okay, so fun. I can't write that fast though. Fun, exciting, and unexpected.
Yes.
I love those words. So then what do those words, and I'm going to repeat them, fun, exciting, and unexpected, how do they play a role in the key message that you have for people?
First of all, if you're not having fun, everything changes. Your body language, the backdrop, the energy in the room. So fun and being present and being in the moment is all part of that. And I love to bring that. I'm a motivator. Exciting means that I want you to be engaged, right? I want you to hear something you didn't hear before. I want you to get a message or think about something differently in a way that didn't happen, and that you are sitting on the edge of your seat like, what's next? What's going to happen? And then unexpected, you will see it'll happen in this interview where you think I'm going to say one thing and I go a whole nother way. And you're like, that doesn't work. And you're scratching your head. And then you're like, oh my God. if I had a fourth word, she's genius. Not that you want to call yourself genius, but you know what I mean. She's genius. That makes so much sense. I never thought of it like that. Now I have a new perspective to move forward and to guide my actions.
I love that. I love that you challenge people. That's like half of what I do. I ask self-awareness questions, not because I want people to know the answer, to tell them the answer, but just to get them to think and practice thinking.
Well, self-awareness is the game. I caught a little of the last interview, and no matter what is happening around you, if you don't know what you're doing, nothing can change. Nothing can change. So that's where it has to start.
So Ilene, what is the message that you really want to share with the world?
My message is self-management is the hardest job you will ever do, and you got to do it. If we can't manage ourselves, we can't expect anybody else around us to be present and to be who we want them to be.
Agreed. Like if I had more than two hands, I would raise all of them.
I'm excited to see where this goes. The fun part is evident already. I'm looking forward to the exciting and the unexpected when it comes to self-management. This is going to be exciting.
So what got you into this message? Why not just get into cookware forever and always?
Cookware is new, so let's just start there. Although I've cooked my whole life, cookware is the last 2 years. I'm annoying, I'm that annoying person who shows up a little too eager. I want all the answers. I want to jump to the front of the line. I want it now, now, now. Not from a place of anger and hysteria, but from a place of wanting to please you, wanting to do a good job, wanting to help others. And when I started to get into management, I saw around the table that I created a group of mini-me's, and they were hard to manage. Can I have this? Can I go to this meeting? You didn't do this. You didn't. I did not have a minute to breathe with this table of mini-me's. Superstars beyond superstars. We've accomplished things that are still in place today, 20 years later, that are people talking about, but they were hard to manage. And I realized that there's a big difference between incompetent people and annoying people, even if they're superstars. So I got into the field of helping people to realize how they show up, how their message is heard, and why their boss isn't listening to them, why they're not getting that promotion, why, a lot of people have this experience. They say something at a meeting, even in a family, it could happen. You say something, everybody, looks around the table. Someone else says exactly what you said 3 minutes later, and everybody's like, what a great idea. And you're sitting there going, what about me? So I help them to be heard, to understand how their presence is repelling instead of attracting.
Okay. Tell me everything.
Everything. So basically, there are 3 reasons we're annoying. 3. Let's start there, right? We talked about self-awareness. The first reason you're annoying is because you just are, right? You might repeat yourself. It might be something you learned in your childhood. You repeat yourself. I tell the story. It's getting old. Probably every podcast I'm on over the last 10 years, there's always the guy that chews with his mouth open, or comes to the meeting or a woman with a bunch of files and spreads them all over the table, right? So one thing is, excuse me, programmers, you got to ask your programmers, your engineers to take a shower because they really do smell, right? Because they've been working all night. They're just annoying. So there's that group of people. Some people just are. The second reason that we are annoyed or get annoyed is because someone reminds us of someone. A mother, an aunt, a brother, a sister, a babysitter, a teacher, a coach, on and on, a bad boss, a good boss. And we get annoyed because we go back to that place when we maybe didn't have a voice or didn't know how to be treated, or just were annoyed and didn't know what to do. The third reason, which I think it really always comes down to, thus enter my message, is when people are a mirror. They show us who we are and who we aren't. And that triggers us. If they show us who we are, we might not like ourselves. I talk loud. I talk fast. I want to get to the front of the line. I'm aggressive. When I see it in you, I don't like it. Or that person commands the meeting from the back of the room. That person is the elder statesperson, no matter what they do. And I want to be like that. And I'm annoyed because I'm not yet. So the first thing is to understand what your triggers are. that starts there. So I'm sure you could both think of certain triggers you have in any of those categories. Do you want to share?
Oh, my daughter is like the biggest mirror ever of all my wonderfulness, which is hard to accept, and all the things that annoy the crap out of me.
Yeah, I say children are the original test, right? Because that's exactly right. Children learn what they live, and we are the role model that they see us at our good, our bad, our ugly. And yet, you know, there are a lot of blessings. There's a great country song, I forgot by who, where he talks about his kid who curses. Do you know what it's, you know, and then all of a sudden, then he's like, oh, that kid got it from me. And he sees how the kid hands something else. He goes, ah, and then at night he sees his son praying down in the, you know, and talking to God like a man. And he says, how did you get that? He goes, I learned it from you, Dad. So we have to remember they get the good and the bad. But yeah, children are a big one, especially as they age. I got a 30-year-old. So that's the first thing. You have to know your triggers. Doesn't stop there. Once you know your triggers, you have to know your reaction. And I say your reactions fall into 4 categories. I call them the F. You freeze. I've seen, you know, multi-million-dollar CEOs, when someone annoys them in a meeting, like get stuck, right? And they don't understand why they're not managing their team. They freeze. You fight. I'm a fighter. You annoy me, I'm going to come right out at you, right?
Yeah.
They flee. Run away. Got to go to the bathroom. Can't do this. We were joking over the weekend. You know, it was a big family weekend this weekend, Easter and Passover, and we were all playing bananagrams. And we're talking about my niece, who's a genius. But once, when she was losing a game of bananagrams to us non-geniuses, she says, "I have a horrible headache. I have to go." You know, they find reasons to flee, right? So a flee. And then the 4th F that you really want to do is focus. Not run from the situation, but stay in it. Now, here's where it gets a little dicey, tricky. Many of us have a bifurcated or a double reaction, right? First you freeze, then you flee. First you fight, then you freeze. So I always suggest to people that you pick someone, maybe not start with your daughter, maybe it's a coworker, maybe it's someone where you buy your coffee every day, and even though you buy it every day, she does not remember your order, or he, and it drives you, or they does not remember your order and it drives you crazy. Practice on someone a little less, you know, close to you at first, and watch yourself. Be in a laboratory, turn it around. I call this our own BS, our blind spots. That was one of those unexpected, right?
Actually, I was hoping you would.
I call that our blind spots. We have to know our own blind spots. So treat yourself as a laboratory. See where you are. There are so many people that I work with that say, I never thought I was a runner, or I never thought I was a fighter, right? I thought that, you know, I always handled this. I didn't understand. I always put it on a shelf and did it later, or said, I'll get back to it. So first we have to know why we're annoyed, our triggers. Then we have to know what our reaction is.
I fawn.
An F-top, I type. And then we have to use a toolbox, or certain ways, learn new skills to deal with them. I have a book.
Yes. Managing.
You write the book on managing annoying people. Listen, I got it on my mug too, so when I'm ready to double fisting it. There are 10 tactics in there, but I'll give you some of the easy ones. Now, I just want to stop a minute to say, it takes some work, right? To have awareness about why you're annoyed, that first category. It takes some work, to be honest, to see your BS, right? Your own blind spots. And then what I say is you have to Goldilocks it. Now, do we all know the story of Goldilocks? Some of this generation does not, right? Goldilocks went into a cabin, right? And she tried the porridge. One was too hot, one was too cold, one was just right. The chair, one was too hard, one was too soft, just right. The bed, one was too hard, one was too soft, just right. She falls asleep. So you have to find what's just right for you, right? What's right for you in a situation. There's no answer. But we have to remember one very important thing about Goldilocks. She was trespassing. She should not have been in that house. So we have to remember, often when we're in this territory of being annoyed or reacting, we're trespassing. We're in someone else's business where we don't belong. So the lesson of Goldilocks is to first make the turnaround, that when I'm pointing the finger at you, you're annoying me. We all know this. I have 3 pointing back at me, right? Old news, but use it in a new way. decide why I'm annoyed, what my reaction is, and then move forward with the toolbox. The easiest tool I give people that you can practice any time of day, anytime you want, and you do need to practice it, believe it or not, is to smile like you have a secret. I think about Mona Lisa. That, artwork for centuries has enchanted us. Why is she smiling? What's going on? What's happening from the waist down? I always wonder, right? Because now on Zoom, we know, am I wearing my pajama bottoms? Am I wearing fluffy slippers? Right? We don't really know what's going on. But no one knows why you're smiling, and that intrigues us. And that has the same impact on the people that are annoying you. So the whole idea is, once you know what's triggering you, you know your reaction, is to really focus on how to change the situation, the relationship dynamic, get out of that pull and push of, I'm annoyed, you're annoying me, and we're starting to butt heads. And this is, real in the boardroom, the break room, and your own kitchen, right? Online, at the, the pharmacy, anywhere you are. So when you smile, first of all, that changes your whole body language. We talked about how you show up present before. So when you smile, actually, it takes less muscles to smile than frown. So it's an easier thing to do, but it changes your whole reaction. And when you smile like you have a secret, all of a sudden they're like, wait, what does she know? It changes everything. You don't open your mouth, which is a big trap for a lot of people, right? And you just smile at them like you have a secret. So that's the first thing I give people in a toolbox that's easy to do. The second thing, and I'll just give you two today, is some go-to phrases. When people annoy us, we tend to get in what I call jade. We justify, we argue, we defend, and we explain. You do not want to get jaded. You do not want to justify, argue, defend, or explain, right? You want to get out of that situation. So you use a key phrase like, that's interesting, even though you know it's not, even though you don't care. That's interesting. Let's move on. Another one of my key phrases, and once again, you got to Goldilocks this. You got to find the ones that are right for you, your right size. I like, I'm going to think on that and get back to you. Let me have a think on that and get back to you. So that's interesting. Let me think about it. And my third one is duly noted, especially as a boss. I found that I hear you. I never liked the parking lot. We always used to joke, right? It used to be a concept about the parking lot issues we can't discuss now. We're going to put here. Now we call it the bike rack because we're environmental. But I never liked that concept. We're going to come back to it because you have to come back to it. And people sometimes remember. So how about duly noted? Let's see where it fits in. I'm going to keep that, for later. So you have to find your own phrases. You might already have some that you use. Anybody? No? When you're annoyed or you want to get out of a situation?
I never thought about it. So now in my mind, I'm like, what do I say? I don't know. But from now on, I'm going to be paying attention.
You can steal mine. So
I frequently say I'm going to think about that, or give me some time to think about it, or, there's a lot going on in this conversation and I want to have time to zero in on that and come back to it. Those tend to be my go-tos. I'm never going to forget your Goldilocks analogy, though.
Because she's trespassing. That's the unexpected, right? You didn't expect that one.
All the way through. I love that analogy.
So, but the whole idea of those things, and there are, 8 other tools, some of them more appropriate in a work situation. One way we manage annoying people is we sandwich them, right? We know their schedule. We make sure we put them between 2 other people so we have limited time, or we put them like you put me in a room with Belldon. We put you in a room with someone else so there's someone to watch. So there's a lot in my book about how to handle that. And that works with family too, I do not go in a room alone with my stepfather, right? Someone else has got to be there because otherwise I will get annoyed and I will act out. So you just have to know when you're going to do it. So that's how I got into it, because I'm annoying. I built an annoying team, and I realized that these people are so smart and so intelligent and have so much to offer, but no one can hear them because they're so busy looking at why they're driving them crazy. And for most CEOs, they shut down. Right? They say, oh, I'm the CEO. I should be able to my meeting, but they don't practice being their best selves. So they're rolling their eyes with the rest of their team at this person. And then all of a sudden, what do you know? The team revolts against them because the team realized that could be me one day. I'm in that person's good stead now, but that can change anytime. And that's how teams fall apart and work falls apart.
Yep.
Yep.
Just, yep. I'm thinking, and I think one of my phrases is, I never thought of it like that.
Great one. That's interesting. Never thought of it like that. I like it.
And then I just go, and then I tend to walk away at that point.
And that one right there is what I've learned. And I was kind of wanting to ask you this too, Ilene. That right there, that's interesting. That's the one I tell myself when I'm being self-annoying. When I'm so pissed at myself that I'm actually saying, Belldon, why did you do that? Why did you do this? I'm having that internal conversation. That's my tool to get out of those weeds, is to just look at myself and say, that's interesting. And then step back and look from the outside in. And I'm wondering if you have thoughts on that, Ilene, what to do when you are literally annoying yourself.
That's hence my message. Self-management is the hardest job. You're identifying it. How do you change it? And I think about it like this, right? Your life is what you do every day. So if I say, I'm going to deal with that tomorrow, I'm going to deal with it tomorrow. Oh, I see it. Oh, I know I do that. At a certain point, tomorrow never comes unless today's the day I do something different. And I was thinking about this morning. I'm brushing my teeth, right? It's recommended you brush your teeth for 2 minutes a morning, right? Everybody knows this. The dentist tells you when you go. I have a toothbrush that actually times me 30 seconds a quadrant, right? Electric toothbrush. I constantly want to stop brushing my teeth at like a minute and a half or a minute. That's enough. I don't want to be late for this interview. The dog's got to go out. Oh, I forgot to, turn the coffee pot off, whatever. It could be something important, something not. But I have to say, no, today's the day. Because if I don't brush my teeth for 2 minutes today, I'm definitely not going to do it tomorrow never comes. So it's practicing right in the moment. So the next step, my toolbox, give you things that get you out of your own way and start you to have the responsibility on you. But the most important thing I say is that your reactions speak a lot louder than your actions. So whatever you plan to do, whatever you thought you were going to do, whatever your agenda was, personal, professional meeting, it's how you react. Oh, that's interesting. I see it in me. Oh, you know what? I want to nip this in the bud right now. Let's rephrase this conversation. I don't like the way it's going. Or you know what? I say we're going to meet every day and I keep blowing you off. I'm going to meet every day. So it's really holding yourself accountable. That's the self-management. And, there are a million people out there, not a million, but a lot of people out there that write about how to change behaviors and how to do that. Follow them. I'm just telling you how to get to the point that you need to change your behavior, because it's not just about going to the gym or cleaning your house, right? It's really about what we do internally. I'll make that call tomorrow. I'll deal with that tricky situation. I'll put off paying that bill, because all of those things weigh on us. And then we show up with an attitude, we show up encumbered, we show up not present, and that affects everything we do. When we just think, they have a very slow temperature, it's just annoying, but annoyance is a little like stress. It is cumulative and it shows. So that's the stuff. Know your triggers, know your response, use your toolbox, and then think about how you want to show up as your best self and what, you can do today instead of tomorrow, and do that consistently. I have another catchphrase. Just because it isn't working doesn't mean it's not working. So the first time you try a new behavior on someone else, you set a boundary, you say no, you don't take their bait to get you jading, right? Arguing, defending and explaining yourself. They don't know what to do with you, but that doesn't mean you didn't do the right thing. So consistency, just because it's not working doesn't mean it's not working.
Follow that through for a minute, because when somebody has expectations of you based on how you've been for as long as they've known you, and suddenly you're taking a different tack and you're not who they expected you to be, how do you move through that awkwardness with the people that have known you for a long time?
Well, therein is the self-management. You have to think about ways inside to stay calm, to stay cool, and to know that you are acting in your own best interest, that what you have been doing before has not been getting you the results that you wanted, and you have to stay the path. So, you set a boundary with someone, and then all of a sudden, someone that maybe calls you incessantly, and, you don't want to be talking to them all the time, right? Because they're always riling you up. Then you have something and you want to call them because, you want a dish. You have to hold that boundary, the self-management. So you're not holding the other person accountable. It's the butterfly effect. Your wings, you're not hitting them over the head. I can't tell you how many managers and leaders I work with say, I'm different. We're doing this different. Eileen's here to help us. And then they do the same thing. And they say, why didn't it work? I'm like, because you told them what you were doing, but your reactions and your actions speak louder than your words. So you have to stick to what you're doing. And eventually, with that butterfly effect, soft and gentle, they will change. Listen, if my mother can, anyone can. So it does work, but it comes back to you again, right? How you stay the course. And that's why I say it's not the first time. It's not the second time. Sometimes it's the 15th time. And that's where you might want to talk to a coach or a person or a counselor about why isn't this working? And, some people might not be your people. They might not never change. Then stop engaging. If it worked, engage with them differently. There's a whole bunch of techniques in my book about if you have one person that you can't get it there, how to deal with them, how to manage them differently. I call it peer management. Don't manage them alone, right? Put them with an unexpected partner, the head of marketing with the, IT guy. They have nothing in common, yet they have everything in common. So you manage who you are in those meetings. You have to be on your best behavior, but you're letting someone else see it, and maybe they'll hear the message differently from someone else.
It reminds me of a reel that I was watching of this lady comedian, and she was just taking questions out of a jar. And one of the questions was about how to handle a coworker who pretends that they don't have the skills. And so they're just like, I don't know how to do that. And so jokingly, she's like, I'm actually going to give you a real answer for this one. She's like, I'm just going to pretend that they need help. So she's like, oh, did you not learn? Did you not know how? Do you need help? Do you need everybody to help? Everybody else knows. And I'm roaring by this point going, oh my God, I see where this is going.
But it works. It works. Right. And I would rather be the person that shows up and says, I'm going to show you again how to do this job I'm paying you for, right? A work contract. You show up with a skill. I train you to do that skill, right? If I'm a good manager and you then produce, I'm going to show you again. I'm going to put you with someone else who's going to show you. Sometimes I have something in my book called the Easter egg hunt, and Easter is coming up, where, you have someone who is always saying, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do that. And you give them like a bunch of stuff that's impossible to solve. So you show them they really don't know how to do it, but you keep them. If you think about, what was that movie with Tom Cruise, when the workout files, The Firm, and he's like, oh, these same files where every new associate gets them and works on them for hours and there's nothing to do. But you get them to understand that that's really nothing to do. You do know the other thing. So you send them on an Easter egg hunt to learn that. I mean, that works very well in government, as you can imagine. But, there are tricks to everything. But people, I don't know. They've been in the job for 10 years. I don't know, or this is new, or I can't change. So my brand is I like to come from everything with kindness. I will be tough when I need to be tough and set the boundaries, but I'm going to first make sure, as a manager, as a boss, as a leader, as a mother, as a sister, as a daughter, I'm going to give you everything I promised so that my side of the street is clean. And then if you can't do yours, then we can work it out. And then I know how I have to manage it.
I like how this kind of brings in our previous conversation about corporate and belonging and efficiency and productivity and treating people like human beings helps all of the other stuff.
Yes, but the data out there still shows that people don't leave jobs, they leave bosses. And it's still, I think it's 45% of people or something that leave bad bosses. And bad bosses are still out there. People stay more and more remotely. It's a little removed. You don't see your boss as much. You're not hiding. You don't have to fake it in the office as much. but bad bosses are out there. And it is interesting that, the message I always give is you have to start with yourself, not your boss. Are you asking the right questions in the meetings? Are you showing up prepared? Have you done what you said? Are you playing dumb? Are you contributing to the team? I just watched, I must admit, I love Netflix and I love Kate Hudson. And I just watched Starting Point or something. Do you know that? It's about a basketball team. And, she's the screwed up daughter and she inherits the team and she has to have a conversation with one of the star players. And he actually comes in yelling at her and says, you can't bench that other guy. I had to play the whole game. I'm 45, whatever. I'm old. That's too much for me. And she looks at him and she says, okay, then you have to be a leader and you have to get the other players to step up. You're not doing your job. It's not just about you playing. It's about you showing the other members how to lead. So as a boss, as a leader, as a team leader, as a mother, as a sister, it's not just my responsibility, right? I have to help other people elevate to their responsibility. So it always starts with them. So it doesn't always start from you can have a bad boss and you can have a very good experience if you learn about who you are, how you show up, what you want to do, and what you don't.
I learned a lot about some of the things that I wanted to do were exactly the things that other people did not want to do at all. And they were very happy to let me do the things.
I've made a career out of that. Oh, no one wants that. I'll do that.
Yeah. And usually it was because there was so much coordination and thinking involved. And in my head, I was like, oh, this is the fun part. And they were like, no, that's the annoying part. Like, I don't think you think the way that I think.
It's funny you say that. A few years ago, I had a product that really trained, it was for a certain client, really trained middle-level managers, right? The company was having a really hard time on deciding who do I elevate and why? And I had a very unexpected way of looking at it. But one of the ways I said is, you want to see who volunteers to coordinate the Christmas or the holiday party. I list all the annoying jobs. I said, those are the people you want. They're stepping up to do something for the community, for the office. It might not seem high temperature, but it affects everyone. It sounds like that's exactly what you do, Laura. So okay. Well done to you. I don't know what you're doing, Belldon, but well done to you, Laura.
I do not drink coffee, but the first thing I used to do is I used to go into the office. I would make the coffee. I would wash all the dishes that I didn't use because I didn't drink the coffee. And then I would, sweep and, do the other kind of stuff before my job even started. And then all these little jobs would come up and I'm like, oh, I'll try that. I had my hand in everything that went in and out of our office to the point that my boss was like, I was only working 20 hours a week on trying to stretch it out to not be bored. And he was working 80 hours. And he's the one that everybody told me, do not joke with this boss. He doesn't like the joking. I went into his office. I closed the door. I was like, you are working too much. What can I do so that this does not happen? Because he would be there before me in the morning, which never happened, and after me at night, which never happened. And he just stared at me, trying to figure out, should he be mad that I'm talking back to him? Or should he be reassured that I'm looking after him? He went with the second.
You are doing everything that I teach. It doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. I talk to them about your basic job, your value is to think about the person above you and what they're thinking about to help them. People say to me, I do a lot of middle management training. Why don't I get promoted? I aced my KPIs, key performance indicators, my sales metrics, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, so what did you do to elevate that? Did you show any trends that might have a risk because that's what the guy above you is thinking, right? About risk, about the market, about next pipeline. So you're showing great competency in what you're doing, but you're not managing up and you're not showing that you understand what happens in that next level, which is deeper in terms of organizational risk, market, strategy, overall pipeline, future products. So that is really the way that you make yourself indispensable. You stop being annoying at meetings. You show up with the information. You help your coworkers perform by you showing in and performing and managing yourself and not being annoying. You do your job well. And then you go into your boss and say, I know you think a lot about risk and I've been noticing this trend, and you get that project. And what do you know? You're the next one promoted.
Yep. All of those skills were developed through fawning. It's like, oh God, I got to protect myself, make sure everybody around me feels okay and is comfortable and perfect. And I'm going to use my health as an expense and a resource to resource everybody but me.
So
now I'm trying to learn the opposite.
I was just going to say,
there's a second piece in that, right? The other piece is building those symbiotic relationships, because you can very easily in that situation become the annoying person with your fingers and everything. But when you create symbiotic relationships, that thing Laura loves that Ilene doesn't, there's something else Ilene loves that Laura doesn't. And when you create those symbiotic relationships, you build that really tight working team.
I have a different opinion on that. That only works for a while, because you want to succeed on your own. You want to succeed because someone else is weak or someone else is failing. And you also, what you're facing then, Laura, was that was great. You know, I would have said to you, that's very nice. You like to clean and wash the dishes. Why don't you talk to them about getting a housekeeper? Because that's not your skill set. I mean, I go back to the old, I don't know, Belldon, you're probably maybe I'm even older than you. I'm probably older than you. I should have said. I go back to the old days. We had something called dot matrix printers.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh,
so I worked in a budget office, and, you know, we did these huge spreadsheets, and we had these printers that you had to keep on queuing up to the edge of the page. And there were people, and there was always extra pages and a big box of, you know, extra pages. And there were people that always emptied that box and made sure it was queued up. And there were people that never emptied those boxes. The people I never trusted was when they were a worker, they emptied the box. As soon as they became a manager, they stopped emptying the box. You don't want to be that type of person that I used to do this to get there and then I stopped. You want to bring who you are and set those boundaries. So that's self-management. Even though you wanted, you know, first it was nice. You go in and say, hey, whose job is it? Or do we have a rotating schedule? Or where else on the team should this happen? Because I have now for 2 months, I'm not saying don't do it. For 2 months, I've been sweeping the floor and, you know, washing the coffee cups. Do we not pay someone? Is there a kitchen policy? Where is it in HR? If there are enough coffee cups to be messy, there's enough people to then talk about why this is a problem and how it's a community problem. And then you run into the problem with those symbiotic relationships that you get pigeonholed. Oh, she'll always do this, she'll always do that, and you never get elevated. So while it works for a little while, I really hedge against those. You want to be, you know, you can make a team partnership, but if you're stuck in one of those symbiotic relationships, train the other person, train an intern, you know, make sure you document everything you're doing so that someone else could pick it up, because that's how you get pigeonholed and stuck. And then let me talk about you being annoying and resentful. You know, you're never getting out of that tailspin.
I got to the point where I created an Excel spreadsheet of all the things that I did, when I did them, how often I did them, how I did them. And then when I went on maternity leave, I was like, here you go. Here's 12 pages of all the things that I was doing. Please don't forget them. Once again, a good process. You're talking to a girl that did a Gantt chart for her wedding, okay? You know, this is when the flowers get delivered. This is when you give the ring. But everybody knows a Gantt chart is those charts that kind of have blocked out and timeline, you know, what has to be done at different times. And I love that because you can see the busy period in this, but that's a really good practice for any business, right? But once again, people can see that as annoying. Why isn't everyone documenting their process? Is it being documented in the same way? What languages is it in? Is it HR approved? Are you doing things because you were given to them, or are they actually matching your job and your KPIs? Because I get stuck with a lot of people on teams. You know, bosses come to me and say, you know, I got this one person, I hired them to do this. They're very competent, but I'm not getting what I need, because they're doing everything else that no one's doing, but they're not doing their job. And those are really hard situations. They're like, I'm so helpful. Everybody comes to me. I'm so popular. I do this. I'm sorry, Laura, your words. I have my fingers in everything. I'm like, right, except for your sales KPIs. You have your fingers in everything except where we're paying them to be. And that is a hard switch to do. So I just caution around that. Not everyone can carry that off. Yeah, it was mostly just get to half my stuff. It was mostly because I'm like, my day isn't full of doing my actual work. And I got it from my mom, where I always have to be productive. So then how can I help somebody who's working too much, and kind of redistribute some of that energy so that it's better for everyone?
Or how can you look at that systemically to elevate the organization so you look more like a manager and a boss, not just take care of the problem for a day? You know, the old teach people how to fish, not give them the fish so they eat for a while.
Yeah. They sent me for a lot of training so that I could do project management. And
I want to talk about, I want to talk about the Ilene pan for a minute. I know we're going to be running out of time.
Sure. So before we do that, just let us know how to find you, and then we'll make sure we'll get that out of the way, and then we'll go into your Ilene pan.
So Ilene, ILENE Marcus, MARCUS.com. You can Google Managing Annoying People. My book will come right up. I'm on LinkedIn, and IleneMarcus.com is my website.
Awesome. Tell us about your Ilene pan.
So actually, this May will be 20 years that I've been living in this house. And when I moved in 10 years ago, it was already old and the stove was crooked. And I'm a manager. I'm a problem solver. I've managed 10,000 people. I can figure this out. I see my blind spots, my BS. So I started cooking on the slope. I learned how to cook on the slope, right? I'm Italian and Jewish. I put the thick chicken cutlets down, the thin ones up. I put the onions at the bottom, the peppers up, so I could go put a load of laundry in and do other things instead of, like my grandmother did, babysitting the pan. And about 2 years ago, I got a new stove that was plumb. And you know what? I missed the lean. So I created the Ilene, ILEAN. You can also Google that, ILEAN, Ilene pan, which is a sloped frying pan that I'm bringing to market and being an entrepreneur. So I have what they call a MVP, a minimum viable product. It's been tested. I have a thermodynamic thermometer. I hope we can talk about it some other time, that measures the different temperatures in the pan. And you can see the low slide is, very high temperature, and there's like an 80 degree or so difference between the two sides. So they cook on the same burner. For those of us that are old and don't like a lot of pans, and for people my daughter age that say, where the hell is all my money going? Oh, at Uber Eats, I better learn how to cook. So they love a one-pan solution too in their small spaces. So that's what that apron and frying pan is about. It's about launching my pan and the commercials, and they haven't launched yet because I just finished the product, but hopefully I'll be making a big splash on TikTok soon.
Nice. So we have about 2 minutes left. Is there anything on your mind or in your heart that you just need people to take away from this conversation today?
I think the most important thing for people to remember is that your life is what you do every day. And whatever you put off, that's not your life, right? It's not the big moments, the bar mitzvahs, the weddings, the christenings. It's every day that gets you there. So you have to show up and manage yourself the best you can every day and brush your teeth for 2 minutes.
The full 2 minutes.
The full 2 minutes.
I've been thinking a lot about what you just said about those everyday moments, because I'm thinking in my own business, how do I create more of those everyday moments that are so small, so simple, but yet over time has that impact because of the consistency, the dedication, the commitment. And that's the thing that I've been missing because I've been too busy trying to help other people feel better that I didn't.
Right, let's talk offline, Laura.
Oh yeah. So yeah, it's been in my mind a lot. Thank you so much, Ilene, for this conversation. I learned so much about you today.
I'm glad you did. I hope others learn the same.
We had a lot of fun. So I'm going to call this the official close of the interview itself, but I do invite you to stay for a few more minutes because I like to do a little bit of a roundtable to share just stuff that stood out to us. So I'll start with you, Ilene. What's something that stood out to you in our conversation today?
It stood out to me that the more basic I make this conversation about managing people, the more people get it. And the more people say, wow, I do that, I don't do this. So that there really is a need for managing annoying people. When I started this work years ago, people would say, oh, I'm not annoyed, or that's not a problem, or I only have that elsewhere. But I think that, given post-COVID experience, it just really, you're two smart cookies on this with me, and you're doing all the right things. And even you were like, oh, I can try that, or, oh, I do that, or, oh, let me think about it that way. So, it makes me really feel great about, following my own advice. Just because it's not working doesn't mean it's not working, and staying true to this topic.
I love it. Just because it's not working doesn't mean it's not working. What about you, Belldon? What's something that stood out to you?
There are so many actionable bullets in this interview. It's just insane. And I think some of the ones that rise to the surface are, what F space are you in? I really, really like the way you walked us through that. Don't be in the jade. But the two that still stick with me the most is the Goldilocks story, and the fact that if you're being annoyed with somebody, is it because you're trespassing in a space that you don't even belong in the first place? And the other is just the simple thing, the power of words. We just can't forget the power of words. And just the simple tactic of saying, oh, well, that's interesting. Or, oh, I'll get back to you on that. Not only does it diffuse the situation, it's calming to us individually. And I really love those two, but it doesn't stop there. I mean, I could reiterate this entire interview right now because it was just that amazing to me.
Oh.
Thank you.
And so there's two things that stood out to me when you were saying all the F's, right, for the tools, like where are you? It just reminded me of all of the fight or flight responses, our stress response. Mm-hmm. And you were like the fight, the flight, the freeze,
the flee.
And the flee. And then you said focus, and my mind was like, oh, she's gonna say fawn. And then you didn't say fawn, and I was like, wait, what? Because I'm very much that fawn person. I don't freeze as much. I used to freeze more, but I'm still the people pleasing, the try to be safe, do all the other things. But I'm recognizing that also as being my way that I could be annoying. And I see that in my daughter. And she mirrors it back to me. And I'm like, no. The second thing that stood out to me was my mind references everything. Okay. There's like a movie constantly playing in my head, and I have to pull references. That's how I think. So every time I'm around a person, or they say something, or they do something, it's a constant reference. And so if they're referencing something that I don't like, or that is uncomfortable or annoying, then maybe I'm seeing that person as annoying, or the situation as annoying. That makes so many more opportunities for things to be annoying because I'm constantly referencing. I'm going to have to think about this one, Ilene. Huh?
Well, that's the story, right? As soon as you become aware,
mm-hmm.
Once I'm on the toothpaste today with the toothbrushing. Once the toothpaste gets out of the tube, you can't put it back in.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Actually, you and I should probably chat after this, but I'm thinking of creating an email list specifically for awareness questions. And I like that you have these questions that are, what's the word that you used? Unexpected. That's what I want, is I want some of those questions, and I want to highlight people at the same time. So it's like, here's this quote, here's who it came from, here's their link, short, sweet, to the point, just to get people to think.
Short, sweet, to the point. That's me.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be with both of you.
This was so much fun. Much
Definitely.
appreciated.
Thank you.
Bye, Ilene. We have our next guest in the background. Art, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us. Awesome. Hi, Art.
Hello there. Good to be with you.
Good. I noticed that you were having you were hanging out backstage, listening a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. And there's a few things that I can pivot off of that.
No matter what you do, the conversation always flows. So I do like to start off interviews just by shaking things up a little, because I don't want any of your pre-programmed responses where you've meticulously crafted the perfect sentence. No, I want to get to know Art. So here's my question, Art. If you could have other people describe you in just 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Well, I would start with pragmatic.
Oh. Okay.
The second one, since it can only be a single word, I was going to say win-win, but I'm going to change that to a really, really weird word. Well, okay, we could use win-win, but the other word that comes to mind is mutuality.
Ooh.
For win-win. And I think the third one that I'd like to have people see in me is caring.
Ooh. While people love to say that, I do have to say that in business, that's rare. So I love that you brought that up. Before I get too much into those words, I want to know how these three words or concepts, the pragmatic, win-win, or mutuality, and caring, how do those words play a role in the key message that you have for people?
So, and by the way, I just wanted to confirm my image looks correct, right? It's a little confusing. Is my image correct, or is my image backwards?
Yeah, the words are fine.
They are fine. You can read that. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I'm not used to being on StreamYard here. Yeah, so how that connects is because what I do is I help sales teams to perform better. I help them to generate revenue, increase margins, win rate, have more client success, lead to more renewals, and all those things. And, you know, it's what I grew up doing. My career changed a couple times, but in the mid part of my career, I was doing all those roles of sales and sales management. And then the last 25 years, I've been helping companies to do that. And it is important that not just in business that we hear the word caring, but specifically sales. And the fact is that it's most important for us to be helping our customers, because when that's our main focus, then all the rest follows. And looking for their success is going to lead to our success. So that's where the theme comes into play. And, you know, these really are tenets and values that I have. And it's natural for me to just apply that in my sales, because I do sales too, because I sell my workshops and my speaking engagements and my book and everything. And so that's why those jump to mind for me, as what I would like others to see in me.
So why sales? Why is this helping sales teams perform better? Why is that so important to you? Why not just be in sales yourself?
Yes. Well, it goes right back to what Ilene was just talking about, of not being the most annoying person in the room. And I'm not disparaging, you know, salespeople in general. And I am a salesperson, and I have been a salesperson. It's just too easy for us to associate sales with things that feel pushy. And, you know, you go into the department store and the person's like, "Can I help you?" And you're like, no, I'm fine. You know, just leave me alone. I just want to browse. Or you've got the people that want to just tell you everything about what they have when they haven't even figured out what it is you're trying to do or what you want. So I think that these are important when it comes to sales, because as a salesperson, we should be seen as helpful. And one of the things we'll get into a little bit of in sales, and the sales that I focus on mainly, is business to business sales. So super complicated sales with a lot of decision makers, you know, IT, telecommunications, supply chain, really complicated stuff. And in those types of sales, you typically have a technical sales type person, often referred to as a sales engineer. And then you have the salesperson that's taking care of the contract, the business aspects, and all that. And the idea is that they should be working together, you know, seamlessly. What happens is that, unfortunately, just because of a lot of history, and sometimes because of the way people do things, even unintentionally, the client, the prospect, usually trusts the technical salesperson. And that's because they know that they're coming with a solution, and they aren't really seen as sales per se, right? It's the salesperson who's seen as the one that's carrying the quota and trying to make their number at the end of the quarter and all that. And so these words that I came up with, you know, are not necessarily automatically attributed with salespeople. So whereas technical sales has the inherent trust of the audience, of their prospects, sales folks need to even focus more deliberately on showing that they really are caring, because they're going to come with a deficit, almost like the trust is not inherent. And that's why I loved what Ilene was talking about with her book, in terms of, you know, don't be the most annoying person in the room. And, you know, we really got to be consciously aware of that.
I
How do you
know.
bring caring to sales? Because I got to just be honest. I mean,
Ooh.
I look through my experience with salespeople as a customer, and I can probably count on half of the fingers on one hand the number of times I felt cared for in that process.
Oh.
It's just not something that's common. How do you bring that to where people can see the win-win situation? How do you do that?
Mm-hmm. Well, and this is probably where I have a built-in advantage because I'm a recovering engineer. I started as an engineer initially, and that's a great asset to have. I got to tone it down a little bit, as my family will often point out, but it does come in handy for remodeling projects and other things like that.
Being a bit
But why I
pedantic.
mention this is because it goes back to the idea of the mutuality respect of what I have may or may not apply to what somebody needs. And so the engineer in me, and why the sales engineers also I think are mostly trusted, is we tend to get curious, ask a lot of questions, find out what's really going on, even before we try to sell something. Now, it's, it depends if the person contacted us or if we're doing like cold calling. But in any event, what we have is not necessarily something that they would need, or what we offer might not be the right mix of what they need. Maybe they only need part of it, or maybe the person that I'm talking with thinks they need one thing, and then in reality they don't know what they don't know, so they may be asking for the wrong thing, or they might not realize the possibilities. So I think the caring can start right from hello by, hey, what do you do? And tell me about your function in a business environment. What's your job title, and what is it that you're interested in trying to accomplish? And that's where the caring can start to come in terms of, now they see, there's the empathy, there's the looking out for the other person first. And by putting them first, now they're going to be more open and receptive to engaging and finding out what's going on.
I'm going to add to that, because this is like the little niche that I touch on when it comes to emotions and storytelling and all that kind of stuff. When you treat people like human beings, that is so rare in sales, first off. So yes, love that. Add on top of that, the disconnect of needing that sale so that you can take that step back and treat the human being like a human being again, mm-hmm. instead of they're a means to an end. You get to have that authentic conversation of what they actually need, the caring and everything mm-hmm. that you just talked about, Art. But if you're not disconnecting yourself from needing that sale or wanting that sale to make the numbers, that is a very difficult line to walk.
And that is why, generally speaking, salespeople are seen as coin operated. It's like, just get the sale, at all expenses. I would argue against that, though, because especially as you initially, and I hear your point, I'm saying, it's
yeah.
I'm just saying we should all consider, is that the best way to think of our motives, even though we are kind of coin driven in sales? One consideration is that there's maybe 10 different things that come up that we're working on, and not all of them are aligned with what it is that we really can do as far as that final end goal. So if it's really smart to think about at the beginning, what is the alignment? And this is where typical sales qualification type things come in. So for anybody that's in the business, things like MEDDIC and BANT and a variety of other ones. And my methodology is sales opportunity snapshot. And the idea is that very, very at the beginning, in fact, let me change my paradigm from this way in terms of a sales process to more of what's called a sales funnel. You've probably all heard of a sales funnel. And the idea is that if you have 10 things you're working on and you try to work on all of them to the purpose of getting your sale, what happens is some of them are not a good fit. And so in the sales funnel, and the idea is if there's 10 things that come in, maybe 3 things come out the bottom as a win. Well, you lose out on things way late in the process. What's the result of that? We've wasted their time. We've wasted our time. Mm-hmm. We've probably force fit something. We've ruined a potential good first impression. And so what I espouse is that rather than have a sales funnel, have a funnel right at the top. And out of those 10 possible opportunities, what are the ones that make the most sense? Where's the alignment, which is where that discovery and the curiosity comes into play? Where is it that we can be best aligned to what they're trying to do and how our solutions fit? and then focus on maybe 7 that are really well aligned and let 3 of them go. And for sales, it's difficult to do, is to let them go. But if we focus on 7 and now we've got a better relationship, we could put our energies into something that's more focused and aligned. Now we may get 4 out of the bottom. So our win rate went up by like 50%, because 10 out of 3 is 30%, 4 out of 7 is like 54%. That's a big increase, right? So it sounds counterintuitive, or let's say as a salesperson being coin driven, I want to chase after everything. I can't say no to anything. However, it's better to think about where is the alignment, and that does take more time up front in the process. But the point is to eliminate or filter out the things that are not going to be well aligned, and then you can really develop a deeper relationship. And again, I do B2B sales, which is usually longer sales cycles, and therefore you can and should spend the time to get that deep. For some transactional sales, this might be a little bit of overkill, but there's still the concept of chasing after everything or assuming that what you have is what they care about. Those concepts still apply.
But this is why things like social media and content and conversations that aren't like the big conversations before you get to the discovery call are also important, because now you're like, what types of conversations do you like to have? What do you think your problem is based on the type of content that you're consuming? Versus how can I bring in that awareness to help you understand, is this actually your problem before we go into the first discovery call?
Yes. Well, driven by the access to social media and all kinds of different things, online reviews and, all kinds of different things, and driven by, unfortunately, some of the history of sales where the tendency is to avoid getting involved with a salesperson. Now the average person is much more equipped to find things out on their own, which is a double-edged sword. For the person trying to find out what they want to do, they feel equipped to make a better decision. And for things like, where do you want to go on a cruise, or what product do you want to buy, or, what restaurant to visit, those are good inputs, because a lot of times even you can see how soon, hey, I got this review from somebody yesterday for a restaurant I want to go to. On some of the more complicated things, such as what many of our colleagues here at Blue Talks are doing as far as helping, and Belldon, what you do with helping people with health and things, and Laura with the idea of, comfort in front of an audience and helping get that confidence and things like that. Those types of things are not just a quick decision for, okay, I'm going to just go to this restaurant, and a restaurant has small implications if you choose the wrong restaurant. What's happening is that buyers, and the studies show a variety of different numbers, there's different arguments about it, but the buyers are at least 30 to sometimes 50% through their buying process before they even contact a salesperson. Now, the danger of that is, and back to your point earlier, Belldon, about how do you, from hello, establish this idea of caring? We haven't been involved from hello, because they've been getting an idea about us and our products right from, who knows how long they've been looking at it. But they're 50, maybe 60% through their quote buying process. Now we get engaged. What do we do about it? So to do that, it is important to know, what do they know? Where have they come from? What have they done? I would recommend things like, what's their experience with this? Because a lot of people are not experienced with buying a software solution. They're not experienced with buying a new enterprise information management system, or the CRM system they have might be 5 or 10 years old, and they haven't really gone through that. So what is it that they are thinking? What's their goal in mind that they have? And that's the key point here, is not just what is the person trying to do, but what is the goal that they have in mind? What are they going to achieve as a result of what we're helping them with? And then when we do that and we start asking those questions, we can start to understand more about what have they done, how have they got this far, what have they seen. And we all know the expression, the customer is always right. What I like to say is we want to make the customer feel like they're right, because they're not always right. No. Because they may have gotten bad information. They may have preconceived notions. They might have, not understanding the full picture, as I mentioned before. So they may be zeroed in on something that's not the appropriate thing for them. So by asking these questions, we can get understanding where they were, find out what else they need, and then how we can continue to develop that relationship moving forward. So it's a double-edged sword. great that they have the information. Let's find out what information they had. What are they thinking about it? How are they using it? What their goal is? And now we can immerse ourselves in a better way than just assuming they want what we've got and we just start selling. That's the way to transform.
The customer believes they're right. The customer believes they're right, and you show an empathy to that in your approach. They believe they're right. Let's find out if they are, and let's steer them. And I appreciate that thought.
Absolutely, yeah, and it applies to anybody that's selling anything tangible, and even if you're trying to persuade somebody about an idea, this is where arguments and conflicts come into play, is when somebody has some preconceived notion. The other thing I'll just mention about this real quick is this is where a lot of sales automation systems are coming into play. So automated demo systems, automated systems that literally capture every touch point that the customer did until they got to you. So if if you're in sales and you have some of those types of things where I don't know what they did or how they got here, those are systems that can help, because it will allow you to see not only did they look at something, but did they share it with somebody? And how many times did they look at it? How much did they dig into it? So those things are available, where once we get engaged, we can find out what they're doing.
What about selling something intangible? There's one thing if you're selling, for example, in health, you're selling supplements, or you're selling Ozempic, or you're selling a special food or shake, as opposed to sharing or selling something intangible, like a process or an education, or what are there differences in how you would approach the people in the situations to keep the win-win and to help them be where
I believe there's a lot of similarities. So the broad brush approach to this is somebody's in need of a solution, whatever that solution is. And the solution can be made up of a lot of different things. It could be hardware, software, products, processes, methods, frameworks, right? A lot of different things. A lot of what I sell, frankly, is intangible, because I sell sales transformation. I sell sales transformation. I have a portfolio of offerings that I can bring to bear, including workshops and, seminars, and I have apps, and other things like that. So I do sell something intangible, and this still gets back to what is their ultimate goal, and then what's going to satisfy them. I have a lot of clients that are in the security industry, and that's a hard one. It's almost like selling insurance, because a lot of people are like, well, I haven't been breached yet. My systems seem to be fine right now. So you're selling the intangible of that at some point in the future, there's something that's going to happen that they're not going to like. And you want to catch them now before it becomes a problem. Because if they say, oh, I have no problem right now, like insurance, right? I have no problem right now. I'm not dead yet. I haven't had, catastrophe. I'm not trying to make light of the situation, but it's almost like there's this really casual attitude about intangibles that are just as serious as if we're buying a new car, or if we're buying a system that's going to help us to do something differently. So I see a lot of similarities. I think, Belldon, where some of the differences come into play is, the type of stakeholders you get involved with and how complicated the decision process is in some of those. But it always boils down to really value, risk, and cost. And the idea is whatever you're selling, quote unquote, whatever, and I don't even like to refer to it as selling, by the way. I really want to turn it from a sale into a buy. I want it, instead of me pushing, I want it to become a pull. I want it to be where, and this happens a lot of times, is as I'm engaging, or as my clients engage, my client or their clients are like, well, tell me more. Sounds like you've got some experience in this area. How have you done this with other people? How have you helped them, and that type of thing? So that experience comes into play, but it's really more of a buy. So the idea is to help them buy, and by doing that, the value that they see should outweigh the perception of the risk and the cost, because it always boils down to those three factors. And if anybody out there, if you're being beaten up on cost, it's probably because they're not seeing the value, or they're perceiving too much risk, or they're perceiving too much cost, and therefore they're only looking at price. So that's another half dozen topics right there. But that's the answer to the intangible, how you can position and use a lot of this as a sale for intangible type things, or helping people to buy that.
Yeah. And the cost isn't just the financial cost. It's the energetic cost. It's the physical cost. It's the time cost. everything involved.
Right. It's, yeah, oftentimes people, I like to use the analogy of a free puppy. Who's gotten a free puppy before, right? The one time we rescued 6 of them at once. Although it wasn't free, we had to pay for them, but that's a different story. But yeah, free puppy. Does anybody know the cost of a puppy over its lifetime or an animal? It's like $8,000 to $15,000. So the total cost of ownership is an important thing to think about. Now, why does that come into play for a buyer? It's because as a buyer, they just look at the initial price. You know, how much does this software cost? What they don't realize is that they may get it cheap. It might be a free puppy, but for them to maintain and actually implement that or do all the manual labor or the disruption to their business processes, they could be bringing on a lot of other costs that they haven't even seen yet. And they think it's just all about price. So total cost of ownership, again, can be a double-edged sword because they may be thinking all they're paying is the first price up front. There's a lot more to it. At the same time, we want them to help them understand our solution may cost a little more up front, but what is the overall cost that's going to save them over that lifetime? If you buy a pedigree dog that's going to cost you money, that dog is probably going to be healthier, you know, give you more whatever satisfaction, maybe a win awards for you at an awards show, right? That those costs are justified. Whereas if you get a free puppy for the pound, and I love everybody that wants to, you know, help the animals, of course, but that can be something that's going to, in the long run, cost you more. So price is a very interesting indicator of what that relationship looks like. And are you helping them out with everything that's involved and why going with you is going to lead to lower cost of total ownership?
So I want to get a little bit into the ways that you have decided to share this message.
So tell me more about what you're looking for.
The typical 3 is the speaker, the author, the podcasting. But first off, do you do any of those 3?
Any and all.
I also want to know about other ways that you may be sharing that aren't the typical 3.
Sure, absolutely. So, you know, traditionally for sales transformation, it comes in the form of workshops and seminars and consulting and things like that. And I love doing that. And that's what I've been doing for the last 25 years, very what I would call high touch engagement with clients. And I love that because I could dig deep and find out what they're doing. And even in a workshop of 12 people, you know, I can get to know a lot about what they're actually trying to do. And that's why I call it workshops, by the way. I don't consider myself a trainer. I'm a facilitator. I don't consider what I'm doing training. I consider it a workshop because we're working on real life things. And when they leave, whether it's an hour, a half day, or 3 days, they leave with something tangible. So that's the main thing that I do. Now, I've seen enough of this over the years, having done a lot of these roles. After I was actually a consumer of technology, I moved into selling technology. And after selling a lot of technology and all that, I eventually moved into sales enablement positions where I was doing the facilitation. And now I have my own company, Team Sales Development, focused on just that. I wanted to capture this because I'm seeing the technical sales and the sales, and I can help both, and I'm often helping both. But oftentimes, unfortunately, it's separately. And I want to focus more on teaming together and being better at what they're doing, helping the pre-sales SEs and the sales account managers and account executives work more seamlessly together. So what I did was in September, I released a book. This is my book, Making Seamless Sales. And I've got a couple of pages here highlighted, but this is my book. So this is what I've added to help get the message out. A bit of a legacy, really, in terms of all the things I've seen over my 25 years of sales enablement and roughly 10 years of sales roles, and all for the purpose of bringing in parts of my portfolio and offering it as one picture that can help either if you're new in sales, if you're new as a SE, it can help you with what the lay of the land is. And then also inside that are pointers to other things that I could do. So whether it's workshops, seminars, sales kickoffs, those types of things, I do all those. And by the way, I've done tons virtually and in person, so, and globally as well. You know, I'm a global clientele. So those are some of the things I've done. And then I, you know, have joined up with bLU Talks. And so this is another venue and outlet and opportunity to spread the word and help make things happen. That's right. I'm going to be in the upcoming issue
Oh,
I
are
have
you?
mine right here too. In fact, so one of the things I'm expanding is not only the upcoming issue of Business Life in the Universe, but I'm going to be in the book with
Oh,
John
yeah.
Gray, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. He's doing the forward for the book. So we've gotten a little off topic, but I'm
No,
exploring additional ways to try to get the message out and help as many people as I can is really what I'm doing.
I
I'm a
love
little
that.
jealous of you. I missed the deadline for that edition, and I'm a little jealous that you get to be in it. That's awesome.
Well, and there's a little side note there. So I actually live in Mars, Pennsylvania. So I am a man from Mars.
Ah! I love it. I love it so much.
Corey really liked that too.
Of course you did. So Art, I also want to know, you talked a lot about being a speaker or speaking as a part of sharing your message. Did you always like vocalizing or speaking, or were you the type of person who got scared every time they wanted to speak in front of people?
I have thought about that because I love it, and I won't say it comes naturally necessarily, because we all have that, what I would attribute to excitement.
Mm-hmm.
Some people attribute to nervousness, but I attribute to excitement. Like I want to share my message, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I kind of have been. Here's the ironic thing is that way back in high school, I did not like English. I don't know. I just didn't like any of that type of stuff. I don't think I was really a public speaker back then, but I know that even through some of my church involvement back in the day, I was involved with some early, youth group type things. And I even did this traveling evangelism thing where we went across the country when I was, a senior in high school, I guess it was. And I was up in front of groups of people. I was up in front of a church of people, telling the message and things. And I guess I just attributed to doing it, just go do it. And so it has been a little bit more common or maybe easier for me, I guess. I don't know. I got to think about that a little more, because all of a sudden I'm writing like crazy, and I used to not like writing at all. So I think, what I think it is. It's just that inherent sense. I did Dale Carnegie way back in the day. And I remember one thing that they taught at Dale Carnegie was that when you are talking about something you really know, it comes naturally. And I think that's the essence of it. When I'm talking about these things, it's because it's from my experience and I want to show it. Share it. I want to share it. And as a result, I think that the talking comes a little bit easier now, more readily, I guess. I don't know the right word to use.
No,
I think that same thing, though, that same thing cycles right back to sales, right?
Yep.
If you're speaking from that exact same place when you're talking as a salesman, then you're speaking from the heart, you're speaking from experience, and you're going to get that feeling of caring and empathy. I see that just all tied together in you.
Yeah. Excellent insight.
That was stopping me in high school too, because I've been on the stage since I was 4, acting, singing, dancing, all the stuff and things. But I hated speaking because I thought speaking was, you have your cue cards, you have to memorize them. You're behind a podium, you got the weird microphone all in your face. And in those experiences, it was me in my head all the time, trying to just think my way through things instead of coming from my heart with the experience and the understanding and the love and the passion that went with it. And in grade 10, we were asked in French class to do a speech on whatever we wanted, because she was grading us on French. She wasn't grading us on the topic.
Right.
That was the first time that I didn't care what I had on my cue cards. I just tried to get it out as best as I could because I loved it so much.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is what speaking actually is. I can do this. Changed everything.
Yes. And it does show. It shows in when we are interacting with, salespeople that we feel a connection with. And I think it just gets right back to this is you just know there's something. And for everybody in sales, it's not like this is an unattainable goal. It's get to know your audience, get to know the verticals that they're in. Yeah. Don't think about your stuff as a stuff or as a product. What is it going to do to help them? I like what Ilene said too on the previous session about knowing what the next person cares about. That's one of the big things that I, advise people is how can I help you to help the person, help me to help you. So you are working for somebody. You have a goal in mind. You have a project in mind. You have an outcome. What can I do to help you to achieve that? And the passion that you come across in truly helping them is going to make it easier for you when you talk with them, whether it's a large group or whether it's a one-on-one or whatever, because people get nervous and everything, even in a sales presentation. And yeah, there's a lot at stake there. You want to make sure that it's properly prepared. But at the same time, it's really about going from what you know. And the more you discover about them and the more you know about what's going on with them and what you've learned, the more that you can offer. And it's more natural.
That's basically what the courageous connection idea and belief is all about. It's like, if I'm in business because of something that happened in my past, and I'm basically trying to be that version of me that I needed back then how do I get to know, like, and trust that old version without fixing anything and letting them know that I care about them just as they are? Because that old version is a reflection or a mirror of the people that we're trying to help today. So it's like, if I have that understanding, then I can figure out what is it that connects me to that audience that I'm trying to serve.
Mm-hmm.
And usually that takes a lot of courage to look at the details of that and the subtleties of that.
Yeah.
Right. And then we can have an honest, caring, valuable conversation to figure out what is it that you actually need versus what you think that you need right now.
Yeah. And I think courage is maybe that missing word that you so eloquently, mention, and that's what you do, is the courage part of it, because we probably do have it in ourselves. It's just, there's a lot of stigma and other things involved with it. Yeah. And it's that courage to take that step. And I'm a big believer in stretching your goals and doing things that are a bit uncomfortable, because I think then you adapt, and the human body and the human mind and spirit is amazing in terms of what it learns through those experiences of something that's a little more difficult. I mean, frankly, signing up with bLU Talks was a big leap of faith for me, because I knew it was going to push me into other different areas that maybe I hadn't been involved with before, and get new experiences and hear from other people and things like that. So I like that. Courage is probably really the enabler there that allows that, what you have, to become the reality that somebody would appreciate and benefit from.
I do want to take a moment to celebrate that courage that you had, not to just sign up with bLU Talks, but you did it to invest in you. You did it to invest in that version of you that you know that you need moving forward. That is still something in sales or in buying that is still so rare, but yet that's the thing that catapults you and gets you those results and helps amplify and elevate those results. Go on. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. You have to invest in yourself, as you go through, and many companies try to do that for their sales folks, but there's many other things. And now again, there's like this double-edged sword of, you just get inundated with so many different things, but taking some time for that investment. And the last 2 years, I've invested a lot in myself and my business, when I should be like retiring, as in ramping down and not doing as much. I'm almost like at an inflection point, because I wrote the book. I just published the Salesforce version of the app. That's a heavy duty CRM app. I've had the Dynamics version of it for 7 years, and I invested a lot over the last year and a half with all those things, 2 years really, all those things, and then things I could do to get the message out. But I was very, very blessed. Unfortunately, many people, had a lot of issues and implications during COVID. My business boomed because I could do everything virtually. And I had people that I was helping to do virtual stuff. So I would do, like, in the morning, I would do a session for Europe. And then during the day, I would do a session for the US. And then at night, I'd do a session for Asia, and sometimes 3 different topics in one day. But I was blessed to do that. But back to your point about investing, I was able to get some windfalls that I could then reinvest. And that's why I'm here. And I hope that, this touches somebody in just the smallest way, whatever that is, because everybody's selling, everybody's in the business of persuasion. And so whatever I could do to help with that, then that blesses me, and that says that it's all worthwhile.
I find some of the best persuaders or the best sellers are like 6-year-old kids who want candy. Or that
from experience, right?
Oh, they will try lots of things, and they pick up on what people want and how they can manipulate, and the good and the bad side of manipulation. But
Yeah. Well, and like you were saying to Ilene, I believe you were talking, or yeah, I guess it was Ilene, you were saying something about the kids, how they watch us and how they learn from us and all that. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Art, I just want to make sure that we know where to find you.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, your favorite way to communicate.
LinkedIn is a good one. If anybody's on LinkedIn, that's the best. If you do connect, I mean, please connect. I'm glad to connect with you. I've got a ton of resources available. When you connect, just mention bLU Talks, and I'll be glad to offer anybody, like a 20-minute Zoom call to see what you're up to, how I can potentially help you out, or ways that we could, you can leverage some of the things that I offer. So that's something that I'd like to offer everybody watching this. Just mentioned bLU Talks. My website is teamsalesdevelopment.com. And again, I've got a ton of resources on there. This recording will be on there, as well as a variety of other sessions that I've already done and different topics that can be picked to help out wherever you need some help. So those are the two primary methods. I mean, I do have YouTube and Instagram, but those are the two major methods that'll point you in the right direction if you reach out that way.
Thank you. I also like to end interviews just by holding some space for anything that's on your head or in your heart that you just need people to take away from this conversation.
Well, again, everybody is selling something. We are all in the business of persuasion. This is something that I touch on in the chapter that's going to be in the bLU Talks, or in the Business, Life, and Universe book. As such, it's good to be tuned in with what is it that makes us, what is it that allows us to be able to persuade somebody? And largely it's about what they want to receive or how they're receiving it. And that means we need to think about what's best suited for them, whether it's the actual solution or just the way that we interact. And since, especially in business to business sales, there's a lot of different types of stakeholders, from senior level people to, procurement people, to the people we run into at the front desk. When we have something we believe we can offer, it's about finding out what they are trying to do and what they can get out of it. And that's why I say turning it from a sell into a buy. I want them to buy from me. I don't want to have to sell, really. And turn it from a push into a pull. Instead of throwing it up against the wall to see what sticks, let's do some relationship building, not just for the sake of doing it, but truly understanding the needs. And then we can get back to being, again, that's that pragmatic aspect of how can I move the quote sale forward, yet the focus being the buyer. And at the same time, when I focus on them, then things will come good for me. And that's where that mutuality comes in. And it all is based on really caring and sharing, caring and sharing. So those are some things that I would just leave as the final thoughts for anybody that's in a persuasion type of environment, and especially for sales.
Should have asked this at the beginning, because pragmatic is a word I've heard like a few times, seldomly. Can you tell me what pragmatic means?
What I mean by that is that you do enough. The expression, the KISS principle. I think we've all heard that. Keep it simple, stupid, right? It's kind of derogatory, like, duh, make it simple. I changed that a long time ago when I was working with my teams to keep it simple and successful. So do as much as you need, but only as much. And I mean, do the right stuff, but the goal is to make it successful. So don't go crazy over it and overkill it. Do what's needed to make it successful. So that's the pragmatic approach that I'm talking about, where it's the right fit, and then comes the win-win. Does that help, Laura?
Oh, it does. Also, we were talking about references earlier, and when you said the right stuff, now I have Weird Al singing in my head. Welcome to my brain. I do want to say thank you, Art, for this wonderful interview. I want to call this the official close, but I do invite you to stay for the next few minutes, because I like to do a little round table to share some of the insights, some of our favorite pieces.
And thanks everybody that joined live, and also anybody watching the recording. Glad to help you out. So looking forward to getting to know you.
Awesome. So this time I think I'll start with me. I'm trying to switch it up a little bit. I liked a lot of what we talked about, but I think the mindset shift from selling to buying is huge. And I wanted to highlight that again, because what's the mindset of selling? It still, unfortunately, it does kind of have that icky feeling like I'm being used, like I'm being
Mhm.
manipulated. But yet, if you switch it into buying,
Mhm.
now all of a sudden I can go from not just thinking about what I need and having to go through the forceful things, but what is it that I desire?
Mhm.
Who is it that I want to become? How can I have that wonderment energy, I guess, is a good
Mhm.
way to describe that, in this process of buying from you or somebody else. If you happen to tell me that, no, we don't actually have anything that aligns with you right now, but we have this partner that might.
Mhm.
That feels so good to me.
Mhm.
And to know that you would lovingly and caringly be that, I'm going to say, cue
Mhm.
for me, that just honors me the entire time. And it just feels so much different. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And as a person who's quote unquote selling, knowing that that's the way the person is reacting to it, it can lead to nothing but good things, or you mutually decide to part ways, and it's perfectly fine.
Mm. So, Art, what is something that stood out to you in our conversation today?
I was intrigued by that little journey we took down, the comfort level of speaking, and the fact that I think courage is a lot at the source of that, as is the courage to, do sales or to transform our mindset. And I'm glad you mentioned mindset, because that's a key part of it too, is the mindset change of that little flip can make a big difference between the way that we come off to somebody else. And even if it's, trying to persuade somebody to do something in your neighborhood, or, in your company, or your boss, or whoever, these things are, when the other person comes first, we really can't go wrong.
Exactly. What about you, Belldon? What's something that stood out to you?
For me, Art, and I mean this is the greatest of compliments because it was wonderful to watch. When we talk about sales, we're always talking about tactics and strategies and ways to get from what you talked about today, a lot of tactics and strategies. But when Laura asked you for a piece of your thoughts on something, and you said to her, and this is a sales tactic, tell me more about what you're looking for there. And I heard you say it, but what's more than that is I felt it. I felt that you wanted to deliver, you wanted to answer her question in the way that her question was intended. You wanted to serve her, and that's why you asked the question. And when you got to the end of it, you came right back and said, does that give you what you need? And you asked her that question to make sure that you delivered on the promise that you left up front. I really appreciate the implementation, because one of your 3 words was caring. And that's not a tactic or strategy. That's something that we have to innately have and innately feel, and you do. And I so appreciated that.
Oh, I'm very blessed by that. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Aren't you glad that's recorded and you can use that as a testimonial now?
Yeah, that is amazing. And I just did it subconsciously. Like you said, it's not like I did it on purpose to show that I was doing that. I truly wanted to know, because there was a million different ways I could answer that. Thanks. Thanks for observing that and using that as an example.
Yeah, definitely.
See, this is exactly why I like to hold this space at the end, because we're like, okay, now my mind can come out of interview mode and go into just casual chat with each other about all the cool things that we just talked about. And then there's magic that comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good.
Yes. Thank you so much, Art. Again, so lovely. I appreciated all of it.
It's been a pleasure. And Belldon, I'm going to connect with you on LinkedIn as well.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I look forward to it.
All right. Thanks so much, Laura. Thanks, Belldon. And thanks to Corey for being our inspiration and, facilitator to make this all happen.
Oh, I thought I had a picture. Maybe I don't. Again, thank
Corey?
you, Art.
Of Corey?
Of course. I was like, I have his book beside me, but I guess there's like images of him and Bob.
Yeah,
and
others, right.
Lisa.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not a good one. Thank you, Art. We'll chat
Thanks
soon.
so much. It's been a pleasure. Have a good one, everybody. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
And we do have our next guest behind the scene. Jessica, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us. Awesome. Okay, I need to stretch, do a little dance, all the kind of stuff. So Jessica, I love to start off interviews just by shaking things up a bit. I liked the face. Awesome. Because I don't want your pre-programmed responses. I want to know who Jessica is behind the business, behind the message, all that technical business stuff. Well, we're going to talk humanity first. So I like to ask this question to shake it up. If you could have other people describe you in just 3 words, I know that's hard, but 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Kind, unique, and vibrant.
Ooh. Later, I'll have to send you a picture of one of the mood boards that I made. I found a quote from like a fitness or supplement magazine, and it says, the powerhouse of energy and lifelong vibrancy.
Sweet. Awesome.
Cut it out, put it on my board.
Nice.
So Jessica, how do those words, kind, unique, and vibrant, how do they play a role in the key message that you have for people?
Well, the first word really is the message. My message really being about being kind, spreading kindness, demonstrating the behavior of being kind and spreading that to other people and, showing up. The vibrancy is probably just something from all my life. I mean, I think you and I have talked a little bit about Belldon. Maybe you don't know a little about my background, but I won motorcycle lessons in university. And when I was riding bikes, I ended up getting into racing bikes. And this really talk about being vibrant, having to be on your game,
I love this girl already.
And what was my middle word?
Unique.
Unique. Yes.
Unique.
Yes. So my father was from Trinidad. My mom was from Newfoundland, and 2 islanders met in Calgary in the prairies and got married and what have you and everything. So this is quite unique. And then I'm a mechanical engineer by training, and then later on we'll talk about this. I have also a master's in motorsports race engineering from Europe, from Basque Country, northern Spain. And so I've got all of these little facets that make me sort of kind of unique. I've got an artistic side. I've been writing, it's just a little bit of everything.
Okay, then maybe we'll just dive right into that side of things, since I know the stories will just weave themselves into all of it. So you said that you were writing. Were you always a writer? Did you hate writing? Did somebody force you into it? Tell us the story.
Yeah, so it's a funny thing. So I did English honors in high school, but I never wrote essays.
Oh.
I was a big Cole's Notes fan. Tells you how old I am, but I also love doing drama instead of writing an essay after I wrote a book. So I would do a little skit around it or something like that. So writing for me, I'm a horrible journaler. I'm hoping that this is going to come out, and some of the writing that I've done is going to come out more. But as I started writing my first compilation book, that's when the faucet just turned open. So it's nothing that I did all my life. Same with the motorsport stuff. It's nothing that I grew up with. And once I started getting into it, I'm like, I really like this. This is good times. And I'm pretty all right at it. And it's compelling. And I noticed that I write like I speak. So it's really engaging and different.
No,
I'm feeling like your 4th word is adventurous, because you're just not afraid to do something that strikes your interest and jump in.
There is this. Yes. It's all in to try new stuff. And then often the new stuff turns into crazy obsessions.
Oh, maybe that's how the writing kind of got in there. But I keep hearing the same kind of thing, is many of us don't necessarily start out elementary school, middle school, high school, whatever it is, liking the writing or the speaking. We just, I don't know, there's something else usually connected to it. And then that's why we fall into it. Thankfully, I'm not hearing a lot of, well, I'm told I should be a speaker, and so I just forced myself into it, or I should be a writer, so I just forced myself into it. Because some of the people that watch, that's what they think, is that I should be a writer, so I'm just going to force myself to learn, or force myself to get an opportunity.
Or force myself to be on a stage.
Right? But
Yeah.
what part of this show is trying to highlight is, how can we take who we already are and find different ways to express that so that we can share our message through those different types of expressions? Or how can we take other versions of ourselves, like that adventurous side of you, Jessica, and maybe pull that energy into something new, like writing or speaking?
Yeah. You know, it's funny because the first book that I did was this one, Echoes of Wisdom. And it's a compilation book of 14 of us authors, and talk about the adventurous side. So it's wisdom about a little bit of everything. Okay. So there's stories in here of domestic challenges, cancer, all sorts of different things. But mine is how I absolutely ruined and did horribly on my very first motorcycle race at the start, and watched all my competitors go by me. And it's all about self-forgiveness at 200 kilometers an hour.
Oh.
Because what are you going to do? Are you going to just get the lambasting out and, oh my God, I suck so bad, and what have I done, and how am I going to make up for it? You don't really have time for that when you're going around corners at 150 kilometers an hour with your knee on the ground. You know, you just don't have time to do this.
Yeah. Ooh, so does this story that you put in the compilation book, does that tie into why you've decided to focus on the being kind, the spreading kindness, the show up kindness?
Absolutely. It's the being kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Because you got to start with that. So if you're always beating yourself up, it's pretty hard to be kind to others. Or if you are being kind to others, it's a sacrificial thing, as opposed to let's both get into this energy and be there together.
Yeah.
There's an old meme I used to love it. And when you said kindness, I thought of this immediately. It says, kindness is free. Spread that. Bleep. We're on TV everywhere. And it's like, it's true. It is free.
Sparkles.
I mean, there's absolutely no reason. And yet sometimes it seems like it's the hardest thing for people to do.
Yeah.
Right. And in spreading the message, I mean, how do you get through that?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
where you can do that, right?
That's right. And it's free.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when it comes to that self-forgiveness, that's how you get into the headspace of being able to just dole it out, you know, because the times where we're not doling it out is when we're not emotionally regulated, maybe when we're going through some tough times and we don't have the bandwidth. Right? So it's taking care of yourself first.
Yep. Can you, how deep you go is up to you, but can you tell us a little bit more about the times where you weren't kind to yourself, where you didn't give yourself that forgiveness or that grace, and that maybe you were hoping somebody else would just do those things for you? Who's your superhero to come and save you, which like never happened.
I think there have been various times in my life, I suppose, that, you know, my expectations of myself. So you've heard all the stuff that I've done. You know, it wasn't a small feat to burn, donate, sell almost everything I owned to move to Spain and go to Basque Country and to go do this master's with no friends. I knew French, but I was learning Spanish and I was trying to learn Basque as well. And when you operate on that kind of level, you expect the superstardom all the time.
Oh.
And then I tend not to take like real time off to disconnect and focus on me. So this is a big lesson that I've been learning, to be able to, sometimes you're not going to be that giant high achiever and you just have to chill, check out, hang out with your lovely husband, hang out with some good friends, stop being such a hermit. So how that shows up for me is I hang out here. And I'm a very, like, I'm known to be very much a social butterfly. But what people don't know about me is when I'm not the social butterfly, it's probably when I need some interaction.
Jessica, thank you so much for saying what you just said. Because when we, and I've been in this group, when we see people like you that are out doing things and achieving and hitting these milestones and just being crazy, and we look at that and we're like, oh my God, everything about that, I love it. And when you have a complaint, it's like, why would you complain? Look at your life. Why? Right?
She's
but everything,
fine.
right?
Yeah.
But everything in anyone's life is connected to the baseline of your life. And when things go sideways from that expectation you have of yourself, whether your expectation is here, here, or here, when things go sideways from that expectation, then we all have similar feelings. And we all tend to beat ourselves up, and we tend to have the same kind of reactions to that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're very welcome. And this is a bit of a mic drop moment. I had a huge breakthrough shortly after my mom passed, and I was my mom's end of life caregiver. So I'm the engineer, she was the nurse, and I said, you prepared me for this all my life. And shortly after that, the big aha moment for me was I have to disconnect achievement from my identity.
Yes. That's so hard.
Because you want to be proud of yourself for doing stuff. You want to be proud of yourself for breaking barriers and all of this. But what happens when, for me, for example, I had a little bit of a lot PTSD after taking care of my mom. Yeah. So during that time, I wasn't very productive. I was, keeping the head above water, doing what I could, but there was not a lot of achievement per se in what I consider achievement. Now, I still created some workshops and did some public speaking via Zoom. At the time, it was just 2020, 2021. And I was at the University of Calgary speaking at the engineering leadership conferences. But I looked at that as just like, you got to keep your foot into things. But I mean, really, there wasn't a lot of any other focus on me growing my business, if not just carrying on and being able to take that achievement out of your identity. This is something that I was so happy to identify, because now it can be, I just got to make sure when I feel it creeping in.
Yeah. I don't know if that comes with the territory of taking engineering or not, because I took engineering as well, and it's very much focused on the what can you achieve, and then they celebrate achievements. They increase your status based on your achievements. Like it's all about the achievements. Even working in the industry.
Well, and I realized this came from a young age, because some of what I remember, the pictures of me in junior high was winning math competitions, and in high school being in speech and debate. Yeah. My drama friends didn't know that I was in the math competitions, and I'm not sure vice versa either.
Oh, I remember we used to be at the front of the classroom, and we'd all line up at the front, and then we would do multiplication tables. This is like elementary school. And then by the end of it, there's like 5 of you left, and you're all standing as if you're in a physical race, like just ready to go. You're in that stance. And the teacher's like, what are you doing? But yet in your mind, you're like, I am physically getting ready for this competition, and I have to get my answer out first.
Yeah.
I won.
And it feels like that race.
It does feel like the race.
So I think this whole achievement tied to identity is ingrained in us, and it's taught by everybody. It's what we do, right? So it's that idea of, well, you've achieved this, well done. And are we saying well done for the results, for the effort, for what are we saying well done for? And that makes a big difference, right?
Oh yeah. It's like you got honor roll, you got 100 on your test, you got this competition, you did that.
Absolutely. And when things were bumpy at home, that was my way of regulating my life. So my father was a drinker. There was, craziness happening at home a little bit. And what did I do? I just plugged away, stay on the honor roll, don't make any waves. So that's another time where it was ingrained into my identity. So it's a lot of undoing.
Okay, so I went through the same kind of thing. Like the achievement was very much my identity, and the different changes in my life had just taken, like horribly taken, all those pieces, those roles that I played away. But when I had a conversation with Heidi one day, Heidi, I love her so much. Heidi's amazing. She's like, I see that you're very confident in the skills that you have, because yay, accomplishments. That's how we're taught. She's like, but here's what I'm seeing. You don't feel worthy of any of it. And as soon as she said that word, like, I am bawling. I wanted to know, I was like, do you relate to that too, as somebody who's always been the high achiever, just constantly celebrated for that part of you?
It's yes and no.
It's
a yes and no answer. Yeah. Because those things can come in waves.
Yeah.
And other times I own it, and so after I took care of my mom, I was like, and partway through it, I was like, who am I to do this? I have a human being's life in my hands. I was heavy. And it took a little time afterwards to really sink in, like, you gave her the biggest gift that anyone could, her dignity, being able to pass at home, building a hospice in her house. And then my husband had come out to Newfoundland as well and was support for me. And all of this during COVID, it was a gong show. But it took a little while, but I owned it. And that was massive, because that was different than an achievement for identity. That was a humane gift to somebody.
Yeah.
And I just wrote about that May 10th. It's coming out. My next collab book.
Oh, nice. Good grief.
Yes.
Is it a book about specifically grief?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So there's a dozen authors in that one, and everyone's talking about grief in different ways. So there are a couple of cancer stories, and mine is specifically about caregiving. There's a couple of stories about people who'd gone through substance abuse, because now you're grieving the person that you're letting go, whether they were good, bad, indifferent, whatever. It's a life you didn't want, but it's still something that is so ingrained in your identity that you grieve it. But mine is specifically the first time I ever wrote about taking care of my mom.
Aww.
And what that looked like.
And that's full of being kind, spreading kindness, and showing up kind.
Yes.
Yes.
Was there a transition for you, Jessica? You're right. The feelings of worthiness can come and go in waves, and for some of us, it was just beat into us when we were kids. Not literally beat, but you know what I mean.
Okay,
well,
good.
in some cases, literally beat too, right?
Yeah.
But it was kind of brought into us. No matter what you do, you're just doing what you should do, right?
Yeah.
Would you have advice for somebody in learning to take charge and take ownership of those things that you do in your life that are amazing? Taking care of your mom is, I took care of my dad helped through his last days, and that's not easy. And to take ownership of it and to have those feelings. Would you have advice for somebody in being able to feel worthy to step into that light?
Yeah. Step one is stop. You need to just stop thinking. You need to just feel and really disconnect from the everyday. You have to be able to say, okay, I've taken care of my bills, or I've done this, or I've done that. I have to do an errand. And then you have to make some time and sit with either what you're about to do or what you've done, depending on which side that you're talking about that, right? So I think it's really, really important to be able to sit, understand, why are you doing this? because when you understand your why, the courage can come.
Yeah.
Because it's not about you. And that's where the courage comes.
I might have to quote you on that one. Because everything
I'll be
talk
quoting
about,
myself all over the place after this
Good.
interview.
Yeah. Like everything I talk about is courageous connection. And really it is the courage of having to look at older versions of you and the truth of what that actually means. That's full on emotion. That takes massive courage. Like, oh my God. It's one of the most intimate and scary and difficult things that we could do.
Yeah. And another piece of maybe more practical advice as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys heard Power versus Force is a book.
Mm.
Have it back
Oh, it's
here.
a book?
Yes.
Oh.
So Power versus Force. So it's a really interesting one in the way that part of the book talks about the different physical vibrations of emotion.
Oh, yes.
You have, yes.
I keep my
Nailed
chart
it.
with me.
There you go. There you go.
This is how I
So-
coach.
So this is a great way as well to step into courage, worthiness, all of this kind of things by going through the different vibrations of emotion. So you start with contracting or expanding, negative, positive, however you prefer to say it. So you maybe start with, anger, and you go all the way down to shame.
Yeah.
And then you have your courageous moment, and now you're going to go back all the way up.
Courage. Yep. And then we're up to willingness and love and joy, peace, enlightenment.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have a couple of sentences and walk yourself through all the way down to shame, right? And you can put this in context of what you're about to tackle. I feel angry that my mom got cancer, but I'm going to see what I can do about it. Or I feel shame when I think of, because caregiver's remorse is a thing, right? Did I do the right thing? So, play that forward and then get yourself into that, but I'm going to get the courage to do it. And I always challenge people to get rid of the word but from their language.
Yes.
But when you're using it as a reframe, it's so powerful. When you specifically use the word but for a reframe. And then as you go, have a look at your pride, check in with your ego. Is this pride serving me or is it not serving me? Is this good pride or bad pride? Am I acting from a place of selfishness, ego to get that achievement maybe? Or am I working from a place of, no, I'm proud because I got this? It's a really interesting thing. And working all the way back up, because you never want to end with the lowest frequency of emotions. You always want to get back up.
I love what you said. I love what you said about but there. And
Yeah.
I heard what you just said expressed a different way that I want to share here.
Yeah.
To leave the word but just take what's on each side of that and flip them.
And reverse it.
Because a person will say, oh, I'm going to go and do this thing, but it's going to be really hard and I'm not perfect. Or you could say, this is going to be really hard. I'm not perfect, but I'm going to do this thing. And the feeling that you have inside when you use but moving into the positive instead of moving into the negative, that generates power. You can feel it right when you say it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm loving this conversation. It's really funny. Because life has been chaotic and I've been trying to work through some of the old emails and stuff, just trying to catch up. I was looking through old photos that I had stored on my phone for later, the never happens again kind of photos. But I brought up one and it was the emotional scale, just like this, only a smaller version. And I'm trying to look through the lens of the courageous connection concept, right? Because I'm creating the podcast, creating my signature talk, that kind of stuff. And as I'm looking at it, I'm seeing that if I could look at this through the context of creating social media posts, inviting people into events and that kind of stuff, I can tell you how to craft posts based on where emotional people are. So there's like the bottom part of the scale. We'll just bring it back up. And when people are on that bottom part of the scale, they don't tend to like your post. They might read it, but they won't be the one, reacting to it or commenting on it, but they're still there. These are your ideal clients that are down here. They're just not engaging with you yet. So then how can we write to still let them know that I see you without calling them out? And then how can we help move them up the emotional scale based on how we're writing our posts, what we're putting in our posts and our content? It's just like the dip that Corey talks about. Yes, I can talk about all the pretty Instagram stuff, but how can I emotionally dip down and touch those people at the bottom in the shame, in the guilt, so that they feel like I am gathering them up and taking them up with me instead of going, no, I'm going to stop here because all of this makes me uncomfortable. We're just going to skim over that part of my story and then continue on. What about all those people down here that are feeling what you felt before, that you're trying to serve? It's like,
And helping people not feel so alone. So when I do my keynotes, I talk about, moving to Basque Country and not having friends, not knowing the language quite yet. And luckily I wasn't young when I did that. I was in my mid-30s. So, I went a couple of weeks early to go and try to make friends and figure out everything's closed on Sunday and all the minutiae of what is day-to-day life going to be like. But, I've been really sprinkling a lot more of, it was hard, and I used Skype a lot with my mom and with a handful of really good friends to remind me who I am when you're in this place where you kind of forget, you have no context of your roots. And I use that a lot to be able to get grounded, to be able to get that confidence, to have just you're doing something. Like, I was the second woman through that program, but I was the only one in my class, in the master's class. And even reminding yourself every now and again that, oh, you've got this, you're pioneering something, or you're going on a unique journey, and giver, just go for it.
That's an East Coast thing. Giver.
That's the new fee coming out in me. But it's true. And we definitely tend to really gloss some of the hard stuff over. And I think, that dip is important to touch on. And I say it's like grief. It's a place you go to, but you don't stay.
You don't stay.
You don't stay.
Yeah. Oh, see, I was like, how can I highlight everything that you're saying about that kindness? Because that's what kindness really means. We're comparing the nice and the kind. If we're nice, we tend to just sit on top and all the surface conversation. If we're kind, we go to the truth, but yet we hold space for that. And then we move with you out of that space because we don't stay there.
That's right.
So then I want to focus on the kindness with ourselves for a little bit, because it's so hard. How did you get to the place where you could give yourself the grace, the forgiveness, the self-kindness? What did it take to get you to that point?
Oh, I'm still working on that. Make no mistake. I'm not quite at that point still. I'm still probably my worst critic and what have you. But what I find is, I think to myself, you have to be as kind to yourself as you are to others. There's no good reason why you should be so forgiving, holding space, so compassionate to everyone else, but then you're judging yourself and you're like, I haven't done enough today. Right?
Yeah.
So I like to look in the mirror and think that I'm talking to my mom.
Aww.
And I really think about, okay, what would she say back to me? And that's who I have to be for myself.
That's beautiful.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. I think of the the golden rule in some of what you said too. Love your neighbors as you love yourself. And you're out there going, yeah, but I bloody hate myself. Right?
Well, and I
how are
take
you
that
gonna
to the platinum rule too.
Yeah.
The platinum rule is treating people as they need to be treated,
uh-huh.
because you may not need to be treated the same way as I or Laura,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And looking at that as well. I think
Thinking of
some
my
of the,
cat.
oh,
It's like I have this one cat. She's very much a princess. So you have to touch her nicely and you pet her head. And then I have this male cat where he will get mad at you if you touch him lightly. He literally wants you to beat him. So then you're like, it's just like, he loves it.
well, and that's good, right? Like, because different people need different things, but let's go back to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really important as well to understand, I think, when you go through some personal development as well, and once you realize, maybe for people who are trying to figure out their relationships with their parents, whether they're with us or not, once you realize and you have that big aha moment that they were literally just doing the best that they could at the time with what they have, as long as they aren't, being abusive and craziness with you, even if they're, looking from the outside like they've got everything together. And I think for me, the realization of making everybody human, that everyone goes through all this stuff. Everyone's got the crazy stories that they're telling themselves, rah, 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 and you're beating yourself up or whatever. But I think once I figured out to have that grace for other people, it was like, oh yeah, I need to have that grace for me. And I'm doing the best that I can. And if I don't do the best that I can for a day or a morning, then I needed that. And that was the best, like I'm measuring the wrong things.
Okay, now you have me thinking about the last Blue Talks that I gave, which in my head feels like the worst talk I have ever given. But that's not the feedback that I get from other people. But in my head, that is
so what does it take for you to believe the feedback?
Well, just what you said, I did the best with what I had in the moment, with what I knew. And that was one of the hardest days before I started speaking that I've had in probably since the last time I almost died. So like 2017, 2018. Wow. So years. And then that was a super heavy day. And then I had to do a last minute talk. It's like, oh, and then I stopped, I think several times to just cry in the middle of it. But so I'm going to ask you, since we're here and talking about things that we've done before, what do you think when you look at old talks or old written pieces or old lives that you've done and you're like, oh God.
Well, what makes me laugh is when I think about what was important in that talk at that time. So in 2007, I did a talk to about, I don't know, somewhere between 300 and 500 high school students. It was and it was talking about, and I was at the University of Calgary in the engineering department, and it was talking about me going through being a design engineer, getting my degree, doing internship, winning motorcycle lessons, riding on the street, but going to the track every year to learn my bike better, then starting to race. And then at the end of it, I said, well, and now I've been accepted into this master's program in Basque Country, this 1-year master's program. And the last slide was this picture of Azkoitia, where I was moving to, a town of like 10, maybe now 13,000 people or so. And I had this picture of like the market, and it's just this bridge over a river and everything's stone, and that's what I ended at. But it was the reaction of the audience that were just like, holy Dinah, this person that's just gone through engineering, just like hundreds of other people, is going on this adventure. And I think to myself now, I'm like, but what was the beginning part like? Was I talking about my racing? Was I talking, and how we evolved? And I'm so grateful. That was at that was when I was talking at the university. A girlfriend of mine also in 2007. It was a good year for talking, actually, because it was kind of me launching across the pond, as they say. I even did a talk at the Junior Chamber of Commerce. And the same thing, you know, I had built this slide deck, and then I realized this is the slide deck that I get to add on to. And that was huge, because then I could see where I've come from, but I'm not really. It was like, you said, are there things that I cringed about? You know, I had this one slide where I was on a motorcycle, and it was a borrowed motorcycle. One of the pros lent me his motorcycle and said, go take some laps out on this one. I hit 270 kilometers an hour.
Ooh.
I'm not going to lie. I might have peed just a little bit in my leathers, just a little. But on the slide is like, big bike, wee woman, 270 k an hour, you know? And I'm thinking to myself now, like, I should use those slides again, because even though it kind of makes me cringe a little, it's still funny and it's still my story.
Yep. It's still funny. It's still my story. Okay, I want to make sure, Jessica, that we know where to find you and, of course, your favorite way to communicate.
My favorite playground is LinkedIn. And you can find me, Jessica Soodeen, Soodeen. And you'll see some nice graphics with motorcycles and race cars on my banner right now. That's my favorite playground. I don't often negate connections. I really love, as soon as a connection happens, to kind of schedule a 15-minute or even ask what made you reach out. I'm curious to that. That's my favorite playground. I'm starting to, so the Jessica Soodeen is my Instagram handle, and I'm just starting to use the Instagram, so I'm pretty poor at it. We will find out whether my post about this lovely interview with you folks, and I'm sorry, I should have I didn't know that you were going to be here, Belldon, otherwise I would have tagged you in that one as well.
No worries.
That's where people can find me. My website is in construction, and I'm not whipping myself about that either.
I forgot that I still have a website to do. Thank you. Giving myself grace.
Sorry about your to-do list reminders.
No, I love this. So, Jessica, I also like to hold space at the end of an interview, just in case there's something on your head or in your heart that you needed people to take away from this conversation.
Something that's in my heart is, and it kind of goes with the whole theme, it goes with being kind, it goes with humanity, is one of the big instigators, aside from winning motorcycle lessons, one of the big instigators that got me overseas to do this master's, and who helped convince me, like, why don't you merge this hobby? Because at the time I was building my motors with a Japanese manual in my living room and no idea what I was doing, and then throwing myself down a track with these motors that I've built. But all of that happened because I reached out to someone. Tony Fole is his name. He's a very famous motorcycle dynamicist. I had no idea how famous he was. And someone had lent me his book, and I hosted him, got him to Canada, hosted seminars in Calgary and Vancouver. I was an engineer. I was, 5-6 years out of school. I did all the marketing, all the booking. Like, I didn't even know anything about marketing then. And only now did I realize I did a great job too. I mean, it was sold out and all this. But the real point of it was I reached out to Tony, and I just wrote him an email. Hey, I'm an engineer. I ride motorcycles. I race motorcycles. And I see that you do these cool seminars all over the world. Well, it wasn't until I had him here and started marketing that people were like, he's kind of sort of a big deal. I'm like, oh, he's just staying at my house. It's all good. We're going to go to Banff next week. It'll be great. But reaching out to your mentors, because people are human beings. People are people. And without attachments, without expectations. If they don't write back, maybe they're not the mentor for you anyway. Or maybe they're just super crazy busy and are going through craziness, as we all do in our lives, in different chunks of our lives, right? So that's something I really want to impart, is that we are all human beings doing our best. And if there's someone that you need to reach out to, just do it.
Yeah. Ooh. I so many things I want to say about that, but I will call this the official close of your interview. But I do invite you to stay for the next few minutes, because I like to have a little round table of some of the things that stood out to us during our conversation. So 2 things I want to say. One is I get to interview somebody that I have admired since grade 9. Okay. And we've been friends on social media since like MySpace times when everybody was on MySpace. I think it's been like over 20 years. Okay. We've been chatting back and forth, trying to meet each other in person. And of course, we both have busy schedules. So it always never worked out last minute. But that's fine. I get to interview her and I'm super excited because she knows I love her. And the other thing I wanted to share was I've been doing just that. You said reach out to people that are meaningful to you. I started going through that forgiveness phase at one point, but also gratitude phase. So I would contact old teachers. I would contact old mentors, old bosses, and just tell them, here's how you've impacted my life. Thank you. And I was just about to reach out to this high school teacher who got me started on engineering. I didn't even know what it was. And I finally found him on social media only to see his obituary.
Oh.
And I went, oh. But I wish that he would have known how much I appreciated him accepting me pushing the limits and boundaries within his classroom, but also him just being there and showing me so many things.
That's
I think he
so
knows.
beautiful, Laura.
Yeah. So that's part of what stood out to me. I'm going to ask Belldon next. We're kind of switching it up. Belldon, what is something that stood out to you during our conversation today?
This is, again, an interview that has just so much depth and wonderfulness to it. But if you have to parse it out to what did I really drive in? First of all, I love your confidence. I don't see very many people that say, listen to this, it's a mic drop moment before you say the mic drop moment. I love when you did that. It's like, that's confidence right there. But in kindness, which you're clearly passionate about, and you're talking about you can't be kind to other people until you're kind to yourself. And one of the ways that you need to do that is to disconnect achievement from identity. That is not that hard to do. It's just something nobody thinks about doing. It's so ingrained that we identify by our accomplishments, which means what was your best day? What was that day back in 2019 when I did? Whereas when you disconnect yourself from that and somebody's like, what's your best day? And you're like, God, I really think it's going to be next week. Right? It's always in the future and you have that room to grow. So I really appreciated the way that you brought that out. And also, I wrote these down with you because there are so many. What you said about doing the best I can. Actually, a couple of years ago, I redefined perfect in my lexicon. Perfect means doing the best I can with what I have, where I am. If I do that, it doesn't matter if it meets up to any gold standard or what somebody said or what someone, if I do that, nothing more can be expected of me. That is perfect. And I loved when you brought that up and you talked about it. So cool. But I really love you and everything in this conversation.
Yay. I actually have I should have brought it. I have mini mics. That I just do little mic drops.
Oh, no way. That's awesome.
Yeah. I got them for, that's it. Nice. So, and it's funny, Belldon, that you talk about that. That is number 4 of the 4 agreements, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what about you, Jessica? What's something that stood out to you?
Oh my God. Well, I think for me, we really went to places about humanity and kindness. Like I didn't talk about doing workshops in corporate. I didn't talk about this or that. And I think what stood out for me is the way that you bring out people, because it's the people that you want to do business with. People can know what I do. There's lots of people that do what I do. There's lots of people that have corporate workshops or that have, worked with race car teams and everything. But when you get to know the person and the reason why they do what they do and the essence, and that they are just human, all just trying to do your best. Yeah, it's cool. Love it.
Thank you for that. That is exactly why I start with that opening question.
Yeah.
Strip
Awesome.
away all the business, go straight to the humanity, and it tells me all the answers I will ever need to know about you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before you ever tell me anything about you.
So true. And it comes from the heart, right?
It very
Coming
much
from the
does.
heart. Even in my keynotes now, I start talking a little bit about taking care of my mom and the work that Heidi does around what you say and don't say to grieving people. And that's been a bit of it's a whole shift. Even if I've talked at AGMs or at professional associations, like just that realness, and I always get teared up about it, but I just carry on with confidence and the rest of it. But owning all of that, like it's really what this all embodied, was just being real and getting to the people.
Awesome. So I'm going to propose something since I get to interview Belldon now. I know, right? It's his turn. So, Jessica, if you would like, you are more than welcome to join me and like stay right now and to help me interview Belldon.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
You're like, last minute. Oh my God. What? Yeah, you totally can. Belldon, is that okay with you?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. So I'm just going to leave everybody the way that they are on the screen and I'm going to officially start your interview. So, welcome, Belldon. Thank you for co-hosting today, but now we get to interview you. And I think now that you've watched a few of these interviews, you know what to expect. So I'm going to start this interview off the same way I started all the other ones. If you could have people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Can I have like 15 or 20?
No.
If I had it down to 3 words, they would be, and there's a reason for each of this. It would be open, empathetic, and helpful. And I choose open because to me, open is a special kind of honesty. It doesn't just mean I'm going to tell you the truth. It means you're going to see me. You're going to get what's inside, right? And I want what's inside of you. It's an honesty without a lot of walls and protections around it. And for that reason, I hope people see me that way, and empathetic, and again, helpful. I'm here to help is literally the tagline of my company.
Aww. Aww. Okay. I'm just thinking of everything that we've said and done just today. Like, this is really my first time having a real conversation with you. I just saw your name a couple times, but I felt that from you all day. I felt your openness. I felt your honesty. I felt your empathy and wanting to help and serve. I feel that. But of course, the follow-up question, Belldon, is how do these 3 words, the open, empathetic, and helpful, how do they play a key role in the message that you have for people?
I work, as you guys know, I work in health in a different kind of way. I'm not a physical therapist. I'm not a fitness expert. I'm not a doctor. I'm a scientist. And my focus in science is cellular biology and biochem, but that isn't where my life started. My first 25 adulting years, I was in construction. And I loved it then. I love it to this day. I love everything about custom home building. And that's a unique interaction you have with somebody in their life and how they want to live their life as well. And that's the piece that I loved about it. But when I was 39 years old, I had my first of 3 heart attacks. And I say first of 3 because between 39 and 40, I had 3. And it was kind of a wake-up call to me. I mean, it wasn't something that I couldn't have foreseen coming. I mean, I'd been gaining weight. I'd been losing energy. I'd been deteriorating in health for years. But the actual event, yeah, that comes on you by surprise. And the first time, I'm 39 years old, I have young kids, I'm not ready to end life. So I very seriously dove into everything I was given to do. Take these medications, take these supplements, do these exercises, talk to this nutritionist. And I took all of those very seriously. And I say that because you see a lot of people in health that don't appear on the surface to be very committed. I'm telling you, I was committed. And I still had a second one. And when I had my second one, they were talking to me about my shelf life. And that's a weird conversation to have, I think probably at any age, but especially when you're still young and you're supposed to have life ahead of you. So when these conversations started, I realized that what I was doing wasn't going to fix the problem. So I dove into every rabbit hole of the health sciences that I could, as fast as I could and with as much energy as I could, because I had that belief. And you guys were talking about engineering earlier. The engineer in me believed that if I understood how this works, maybe there was a way I could work with it. And so I started diving down, not to look at studies and all of this data. I studied to learn, how does a cell work? And when I started learning how a cell works, it took very little time to realize that the mass majority of what we're taught about our bodies and food and health is complete and total garbage. The language that we use doesn't even reflect the language of how the body works. And so I started on this tour first, completely selfishly, to fix me. And once I started learning how it worked and how to work with it, that happened really, really fast. I reversed type 2 diabetes in 3.5 months. I lost 105 pounds in 5.5 months. And I had reversed heart disease by the end of 2 years doing these things. And when I did it, and I realized, first of all, on the physiology of it, it's really not hard to do. It's really kind of easy, but it involves changing how we talk about things so that we're using the language of how our body really works. That told me immediately I had a mission in life. I had to help people understand, because look at how fast disease is taking over our country. And so it became a mission for me. But I also started having, after I achieved all of these things, I started having a different kind of problem. I started getting emotionally connected to food. It's not getting emotionally connected to food. That's not the right way to put it up. It's that the emotional connections were coming back. And when I would feel stressed and when I would feel upset or depressed, I'd start going back to the old patterns of behavior that I'd been stuck in for years. And after losing 105 pounds, I gained 40 of it back. And I was freaking scared, like really, really scared, because I knew where that was going to take me. It was going to take me right back to where I was and what I just got rid of. So it opened up a new understanding in me that the way that we emotionally connect and the way that we mentally connect to food in our world are things that have to be resolved. We can get people healthy and it's not going to stick. I mean, I've been in auditoriums of 3,000 people saying, how many people have ever been on a diet? Boom, everybody. How many people have failed that diet? Boom, everybody. How many have started and failed at least a half a dozen times? Boom, almost everybody. Why? It's not because what we were doing wasn't working. It's because we reached a point where we couldn't do it anymore because the way we think and the way we feel took over. So that was where I needed to go if I was going to successfully help people. I had to get to the point of understanding that, of implementing that, and of learning how to communicate that. And that takes a special kind of openness and empathy for somebody to go to. Excuse me, I do get emotional about this topic, but it takes a special something in order to get people to open up. When you were talking earlier, Laura, about, well, both of you were having the conversation of you started angry, you go down to shame, and you, Laura, are saying, this is where your people are. That's where these people are. When you've tried and you failed so many times, you're in a place of shame. You're in a place of losing faith in yourself. You're in this place of saying, why don't I have the self-discipline? Why don't I have the willpower? Why can't I do it? They did it. And of course, you point to the 1 in 10,000 people that actually did. They did it. Why can't I? And that's where you are. And those people aren't going to open up to me if I can't be in that place.
Yeah.
Long answer to a short question.
No. But when you can go to that place It's as if you can go and knock on its door and say, I'm coming for a visit. And then you get to visit with the people living in that house, feeling that shame and that guilt. But then you can leave anytime you want. They don't feel like they can leave.
I visualize that in a different kind of way, because you have to be, if you're going to go there. You have to have an escape route from that. You have to.
Yeah.
So when I start conversations with people, with clients, we visualize it a different way. You live over here. I live over here. We're going to meet on the playground. And if at any point you need to pick up your ball and go home, pick up your ball and go home. If at any point I need to do the same, I'm going to do that. But you have to meet in what you guys can both visualize as neutral territory. You have to.
I like using lots of analogies, just whatever comes to mind in the moment. But I do like that idea of the playground better. I tell people all the time, I was like, are you ready to come and play with me? Because it's not about me wanting to use you or you wanting to use me. It's how can we play together? Because that's the energy that I want, is that playfulness. Because then we can create together. And that's really what the job is. Because if we're not creating, then you can just go to Google and find all the answers that you want. But really what you're wanting from me is to help you personalize those answers and that knowledge. That takes play. That takes curiosity. That takes courage.
Totally.
That takes somebody else that isn't stuck in that bottle, only seeing the label from the inside, right? To having other people to see all the different perspectives around you.
And ideally somebody that's played the game before.
Exactly.
And I think that's something people miss in almost every industry, but especially in health, because you'll have somebody like me, morbidly obese, type 2 diabetes. I didn't know I had heart disease until I found out, but apparently it was there. And what am I looking at for help? I'm looking to somebody that's never been more than 20 pounds overweight in their entire life, standing on TV with their shirt off, showing me abs and ribs. That's not the person I need to be talking to. That person has absolutely no idea where I am and what I'm feeling. You have to seek out people who have been where you are, who are where you want to be. I don't care if I ever have ripped abs. It's not a goal in my life. So that person's not really where I want to be. And you have to have a person who's been able to stay there for a period of time. And it's true in sales, it's true in marketing, it's true in everything in life, but especially is it true in health, because there is so much shame attached to being in a place where you don't have your health and you can't seem to get it back, that people just completely retreat and believe they have to figure it out themselves. No, you just have to find that person who can who can tick those 3 boxes. That person was where I am, they are where I want to be, and they've been able to hang on to it. I want to know what they did.
Belldon, I think that's amazing, because what you're doing is you're helping people not feel alone. Because you get so stuck when you're alone on any sort of journey, and the health journey is one where you only got one body. And you're in it. There's no disconnection. There's not, it's not like, well, I'm going to go put that book over here and go write it next week. No, you're living in your body. There's no escape. That's so
and when you were talking about kindness and starting with yourself, some of this really hit home, because in this world, I mean, one of the exercises that we do is to get people to love their body the way it is, because the truth is, you're never going to do your best by something that you hate. I hate my car. How much care am I going to take of that car? I love my car. How much care am I going to take of that car? Right? And I tell the story when in live events. When I was in high school, I bought a Mustang. Now, people are like, crazy, you had a Mustang? Yeah, I had a 64 Mustang. I had the Mustang. But when I was in high school, it wasn't a classic yet. Right? It didn't cost me $100,000. It cost me like $2,500, but it was rusted out. It's like, it wasn't pretty. It ran, but ran kind of rough. And, there was a lot to do on it. But the thing is, I loved that car. I loved it. I was proud to drive it. I loved that car. And it was because I loved that car that I took a mechanics class in high school to learn how to fix the engine and tune it up. And I took an auto body shop in junior college to fix up the outside and to make it. I did all of that because I loved the car, even when it was rusted and running rough. At the same time, there was a car, and you guys may or may not know what these are, but there was a car called an AMC Pacer that looked like a fishbowl. It was the ugliest damn car. People would buy those cars brand new off the lot because they were inexpensive. They'd buy those cars brand new off the lot, and they didn't love those cars. So they ran them into the ground. Today, you look around and you see all kinds of classic Mustangs. How many classic AMCs do you see? But it illustrates how important it is to get into a place where you can love you, where you are right now. Overweight, wings under my arms, the belly, all the stuff. I have to learn to love myself here. So we go through an exercise. It's hard for people at first, but once they do it, they really get into it. We go through an exercise to learn to love what your body can do for you, to let your body bring you fun. Because what's better than fun, right? And how many people who are overweight stop dancing, stop playing, stop getting down on the ground because it's embarrassing. So they stop allowing their body to give them fun, even when their body wants to give them fun. So we pick out songs that target that part of their body that they hate the most. What do you hate about yourself? Oh my God, I hate my arms. I hate this. Great. We put your hands up, come on, and we dance to it. We all dance to it until they're fun, until they're being silly, until they're starting to laugh and giggle. I like big butts and I cannot lie. That one comes out. Belly dancing comes out.
Oh, that's my jam.
Right? And we start getting these songs out just so that people can allow their body to give them fun, because you have to get to a place where you can love who you are before you can make yourself who you want to be. You cannot be who you want to be if you can't love who you are. So that's been a huge, huge part of the work, to be able to help people successfully do this.
I love how intentional that is. Like how on purpose that is.
Mm-hmm.
Being intentional is so powerful.
And people have to do it. And then it's fun because after they've been doing this for a few weeks, they'll be in the store and a song will come on and suddenly they're dancing again and they just don't care. And that's great because nobody else cares either. They love it when people have fun, right? So then it starts to grab. And once it starts to grab and you love who you are, it becomes almost an inner drive to become the best version of who you are that you can possibly be. Because why wouldn't you? You love you.
I like to tell this story about my daughter when she was younger. There was one day I heard crying coming from down the hall. And I'm like, oh my God, what happened? Is she hurt? Did she hurt herself? I go down the hall. She's crying in the bathroom, looking in the mirror. And I'm like, what's going on? She's like, just so pretty. I was like, oh my God, yes. I don't know what I did to raise her to be like that, but yay. And then I'm like, wait, how do I get a little bit of that confidence?
Right?
It was just so cute because she was like red eyes, bawling her eyes out. Like you would if you stubbed your toe really hard on the corner of something. That's what she looked like.
Awesome.
So then from that moment on, I started to learn about, the mirror talk and that kind of stuff. And I got to the point where every morning I would wake up and I would look at the mirror before I get dressed, because this is important for me because I hated my body. I I would look in the mirror, still undressed, and I'd be like, dang, those curves. Because that was the only thing I could say about myself that I didn't immediately reject.
Mhm.
And it wasn't like, I love my curves. I couldn't even say that yet. But if I said, dang, my curves, because of that song, you know, I love big butts and I cannot lie. I've always hated my butt because it was bigger and I could never get pants on. But like all these little things add up to start some of the conversations that do feel okay. And then you can build on them and build on them. So I love that.
You know, even if it's just, you don't have to lie to yourself. And I share this with people. If you're lying to yourself subconsciously, you know you're lying to yourself. You can get up in the mirror all day long and you can say, oh my God, I love how I look. And if you don't love how you look, your subconscious is going, yeah, not buying it. You don't have to lie. I'm vertical today. I got out of bed. I got work done. It might not have been everything I wanted to do, but I got things done that are now behind me instead of in front of me. I've loved my kids. I have loved my spouse. Someone has loved me. It doesn't matter. Grab onto those things because your body did all of that for you. Your body did every single piece of that for you. And there's always a reason to love your body for what it's doing, if not for what you see in the mirror. There is always a reason, and you need to zero in on that and love it. And honestly, that's part of loving you in the greater sense, is loving the shell that you're in. And you have to. So yeah, pick out those little things. If it's something you see, great. If it's something that you're doing, great. I went up and I saw this waterfall last weekend. Your body took you there. Love that.
I did that mirror talk for about a year or so. And then I remember getting on the scale, being at the highest non-pregnancy weight I had ever been. And instead of thinking, you know, oh my God, this is the biggest weight, you're so fat, you know, all the words we tell ourselves. Instead of thinking that, in my head, immediately I went to, oh my God, you poor sweet soul. I am so sorry that I have done this to you. I appreciate everything that you've ever done. I got you. And then as soon as I realized that I had said nice things to myself, after seeing the biggest weight ever on the scale, I was like, is this what self-love feels like? Because I had never really experienced it naturally before. You know, you think it, you consciously do it, but unconsciously, I'd never experienced it. That was like the best day ever.
That's like cool, right?
Yeah.
You hit on something there though, and it's something that's so important for people to understand, and that's where we are in our health. I mean, look around you. You're not by yourself. You're in a country right now, this year, we're expected to pass 50% of our population will have some form of diabetes, type 1, type 2, or prediabetes. 50% of the country. Out of 10 people, 7 of them are going to have some form of probably preventable cancer. Heart disease is off the charts. 70% of our country is obese. This isn't something that is your fault. This is something that has become systemic in our culture. And we need to be able to say, this isn't my fault. But, and I'm going to use but here, but it is my responsibility to get out of it because nobody's going to turn it around for me. There's no profit in that. So it's not my fault that I'm here, but it is my responsibility to turn it around and to be able to achieve a different kind of life. And you were in that spot at that moment. You weren't blaming yourself, but you were taking responsibility. And that's the beginning of real change, is when you hit that particular transformation.
Oh, then it gets better. Just to add on to this whole story and show the progression of the decades. Okay. I need people to realize this is over like a decade or more. I got to the point this time last year, I couldn't walk for a month. We talked about kindness to ourselves and achievement and all of that. I got to the point where I was doing things for other people and pushing myself so much that I was compensating. as more and more parts of my system decided to not work. So I couldn't walk for a month. That's when I had the conversation with Heidi, where she's like, you're confident, but you don't feel worthy. And I realized it. So I started calling the doctors. I started getting people to give me data so that I could process my data. And then the only goal that I had for myself was, can I be consistent with looking after myself? Like, the next step for me is I'm pretty on par with my nutrition generally, unless I choose not to. But like going to the gym and the movement, because that's the part that now scared me. My only goal was, can I be consistent? Not can I lose weight, not can I build muscle, not can I do an hour workout. Can I just show up for me on a regular basis? And the answer was finally yes. Finally.
Mm-hmm.
But how many times at the beginning of the year we have those New Year's resolutions and we show up for ourselves for 2, maybe 3 weeks?
Oh, can I share why that is?
Yes. I figured I would bridge it back to you with that.
This is a fun little piece of psychology. I call this the big D decision and the little d decision.
Exactly.
If you come to January 1st and you say, this year, I'm going to get the iPhone X. That's it. That's all you say. This year, I'm going to get the iPhone X. There's a period right there at the end of that sentence. And I absolutely promise you, you're not going to get it this year. You're probably going to get it this month, maybe even this week or next week. And it doesn't matter what you have to do to make that happen. I'm going to skip buying my coffees this week so that I can afford that iPhone. Because you've made a big D decision. When people make health decisions, listen to how those decisions are made. I am going to finally take charge of my health this year, which, by the way, is a very indistinct goal. What does that even mean, right? I'm going to take charge of my health this year. Now, I understand that I'm not perfect. I'm a human. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to give myself grace for those mistakes. And guys, there's a huge difference between giving yourself grace for something that went sideways versus giving yourself grace for something that isn't even started yet. One is making excuses for why you're going to fail. The other is understanding that you're human, right? But I'm going to give myself grace. And in fact, everything I've read has told me that I can't have an attitude of deprivation. So I'm going to give myself a cheat day, or I'm going to give myself a cheat treat. But you see how this is a little d decision? You have already planned out every aspect of your failure before you even put a period on the sentence. A little d decision is never going to happen for you. And that might be a little d decision in your relationship. It might be in your health. It might be in your work. It doesn't matter where you put them. Little d decisions don't happen because you've planned out your failure. Big D decisions do. I'm going to get an iPhone X, period. Right? Nobody says, I'm going to get an iPhone X, but you know what? I know I really don't make that much money, and I know I really like my coffees, so I'm going to allow myself my coffees. And no, you'd never get an iPhone if you did that. So you have to make that big D decision. And it shouldn't be, I don't like shooting all over people, but I'm going to shoot on people here. Your big D decision shouldn't be tied to a moment in time. And this is so important, because if it's tied to a moment in time, your decision is lost. Your willpower is lost. Your commitment is lost after that period of time has passed. So I'm going to take care of myself to fit into my wedding dress. Great. You're going to lose it all after you get married. I am going to lose 20 pounds. Great. Now, that might not be a distinct period of time, but it's still a period in time. You're going to hit that 20-pound mark, and you're going to regain it all after that is over. So how do you hang on to something for long term? Well, I am going to take the best care of myself that I am possibly capable of doing, period. My personal goal, when I woke up in the morning and I felt really good, which I didn't realize for all those years, I felt like crap every day. You don't realize it because it's your normal. when you start feeling good and then you go back to that crap, oh, you feel it then, right? But when I woke up and I felt good, and to me, this was defined the day that I got out of bed and I stood up. I just stood up. Nothing hurt. I didn't have to stand up slowly. I didn't have to get out of bed carefully. I got out and I stood up and I started my day because nothing hurt. And I'm like, I never want to lose this. So my goal is I want to feel like that every day of my life. It's a goal. It is a definitive goal. It's defined. You can measure it, but it is not tied to a point in time. And because of that, if I get up any day and I hurt, I immediately think, what did I do yesterday that made me feel this way? Because I'm not doing any more of that. And I'll make that change immediately in real time. So when you make those goals, big D decision, put a period after it, but make sure it's something that's achievable and not tied to a moment in time, and preferably not tied to weight, because that can be real misleading.
Go ahead.
You said something so important there. I'm not going to do that anymore. You know, there's no like, holy done, I sucked yesterday. No.
Mm-mm.
It's the past. I choose not to do that anymore.
Yeah, I don't want to feel like this again. So I choose. But yeah, we get locked into our patterns, right? I love when Laura talks about patterns, because we get locked into patterns. And that's why it's so important not just to recognize them and not just to work on them, but to change them, so that when you retreat to your subconscious, this is what happens in our world today. You get so stressed and your conscious mind has a bandwidth. There's only so many things that you can have in your conscious stream of thoughts at a time. And things like our food get pushed out. And when they get pushed out, it's not that we don't eat. It's that we revert to our subconscious pattern. And that's driving us to do the things that we used to do that got us into this bad spot in the first place. So we have to recognize that pattern. Then we have to learn to use that pattern with pattern interrupts. And then we need to learn how to change that pattern. These are all progressions on the journey if you want to be able to live your life as the healthiest version of you that you can be.
I think Jessica knew where I was going to go with my question. In the last Blue Talks networking, I wanted to share a question that's just been so prevalent lately. It's, what is your never again moment? How do you get yourself, especially when it comes to weight loss and looking after yourself, if that's not a habit that you already have? How can you look for that never again moment and root it there, but then look for the equal and opposite emotion and strive for that, or the equal and opposite feeling? Yeah.
For me, it came, and this is going to sound terribly judgmental, but I'm just going to share this. For me, it came when my doctor sent me this was when I realized I needed to go and learn how to do this. And I wished I had somebody that could teach me easily, but I didn't. So I had to go figure it out. But when I was assigned to my nutritionist, I went in and I sat down into my nutritionist in front of her, who's going to tell me how I need to eat for heart disease and the weight loss that my doctor was telling me I needed to have, and for my type 2 diabetes. She was at least 80 to 100 pounds overweight. And I realized when I sat down in front of her, I'm talking to somebody that has the problem I need to get rid of. I get that this advice is coming from her schooling, but it's not coming from knowledge and understanding. But it also reminded me when I was in the hospital and in my emergency things, how many people in the hospital are overweight and unhealthy? How many people throughout healthcare are overweight and unhealthy? But it was that moment in time where I'm like, I don't trust this. I don't trust what people teach, what people are taught. And it was that moment in time that I realized I'm never again going to hinge my future on somebody else's thoughts and opinions. I was going to be making decisions. And everybody needs to do this with their health, because medicine is not designed to keep you healthy. Medicine is designed to keep you out of pain. It's designed to keep you comfortable. And if you want to be more than comfortable, like you want to have a life, you want to hike, you want to ride motorcycles, you want to do things, you want to be like my grandfather. My grandfather died when he was 92. I watched it. He was 92 years old, still so energetic and active. And he picked up a splitting maul, which for those that aren't old enough to know is like a really heavy axe, weighed 15 pounds. And he picked this thing up over his head at 92 years old, split a piece of wood clean in two, and dropped in a pile on the ground. He had no disease. His autopsy was completely clean. He just timed out. But he was enjoying everything right up until the moment he timed out. I don't want to live forever. I listen to these guys follow 120 protocols a day trying to live to 120 years old. I don't care if I live to 120. I just want to live until I time out, until the day I die. I just want to live until then. And so never again will I ever put my health outcomes into the hands of somebody else. It doesn't mean I don't go see doctors, don't get me wrong. Doctors kept me alive through 3 heart attacks and gave me enough time to learn what I know today. Without them, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. So it's not that I hate doctors or I don't go to see doctors. It's just that they're not going to be responsible for my outcomes. I am.
So Belldon, we have just a few minutes left. I want to make sure that we know where to find you and your favorite way to communicate.
So iwantfoodfreedom.com. Just go there. iwantfoodfreedom.com. And right at the top of the page, there's a big button that says have questions. And if you have questions or you want to talk, click that button and you're going to get a free 30 minutes. And we're going to talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about. That can be everything from your health to great old fashions at your favorite bar. That's the way to get a hold of me. And it's right there. Super easy. Awesome. So and then, I'm at Belldon Colme on every social media site.
Okay. I think you know the routine here. So I like to hold space at the end of an interview, just in case there's something on your head or in your heart that you need to share with people. What might that be?
There are 3 people that are trying to get their health back. 1 are highly motivated people that just need to know what to do. There are people who are less highly motivated and have a lot of, let's just say, complications in their relationship with food. And there are people that need both. There are people that need to know what to do and have complications with your food. The reason I developed the Food Freedom Reset is to help people from all 3 of those. We have all 3 of those paths. You can pick your path through the program. Here's what you need to know. And we worked actually with Jen Drummond, who is setting records all over the place for mountain climbing right now. She's a client of ours, and that's the path she went through. Just tell me what to do. I'll take care of it. We have lots of people with emotional relationships to food, and we have a very unique and focused program that will break that connection with food that you have, that will lead you to a place, mind, body, and spirit, where you no longer have disagreements in your head, the argument in your head. I don't want to do this. Oh, but you're going to, right? And we'll get that all on the same page. And wherever you are in that journey, come to Food Freedom Reset. We have a path that's going to work for you and all the support you need. Remember, the motto of my company is I'm here to help. Whatever that means for you, not for me, whatever it means for you is the support that you're going to get.
Aww. Well, Belldon, I want to say thank you. And of course, I will call this the official close of your interview. But again, I like to have the last few minutes just to kind of do a recap of some of the things that we talked about. So this time I'll start with Jessica. Jessica, what's something that stood out to you during this conversation today?
Oh, I don't know if you could see it, but I teared up so much when you said some days you got to pat yourself on the back for just standing up.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that, Belldon. And I think a lot of people need to hear that and love themselves when they just stand up.
Amen.
Ooh, okay, I'm going to go next, which just adds to what you said, Jessica, and continues on with the story. So I have been going to the gym quite regularly. And one of the things I noticed was my never again moment was not being able to walk for the month. The equal and opposite emotion or feeling that I wanted was the freedom of movement again. There's so many limitations with my health and my body because of accidents, because of all kinds of things, that I haven't felt the freedom in many, many years. Like stairs, a thing that I do every day, was difficult for as long as I can remember. I got to the point at the gym where I could do a full, unassisted, and not being scared of what's going to happen squat from standing all the way to the floor and all the way back up. The first time that happened, thank you, it was like a month and a half after going to the gym 5 days a week. When that happened, I'm standing in front of the mirror, literally standing up, and I'm crying. There was a guy beside me on the bench doing some sort of free weight thing, and you could see him go, "Don't look, don't look, don't look, don't look." All while I'm like 4 feet from this man, crying in the mirror. It was one of the happiest moments that I've had in the gym, because I'm like, I don't remember the last time I could do that. First off, unassisted, like a counter, chair, something. And second, of not being scared of falling over. Because I was falling, like just randomly falling about 12 times a day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because my knees would just give out. And to go from that and not walking to doing a full squat without being scared. And then I got to the point probably about 3 weeks ago where, you know, those wooden blocks that they use for the fancier gym techniques. Anyway, I had the one, and I had a pole because my balance isn't great yet. Working on that one. And I was climbing over the box as if I was hiking. And it was the trail, like an uneven rock trail. And then I put the second box on top. This is now hip height. And I'm climbing up the boxes and back down and jumping onto my feet. I'm like, I can go hiking again. I haven't gone hiking since my daughter was 5. She's 15 now. This means I can go camping. If I want this summer, I can go back on the trails. It feels like freedom to me. And that's exactly what I wanted, was that freedom. Yeah. See, just like adding to all the things that you were saying today. Okay. What stood out to you today, Belldon?
You know, to build on that a little bit, and then I'll say what I was going to say, but to build on that a little bit, it's really important to have those kinds of experiential goals. And what I mean by that is, I want to hike again. I want to go camping again. Because if your goal is to lose weight, you're not going to do it. There's no reason to do it. If your goal is to whatever, you have to attach something experiential to it. And that's going to give you the motive to do it, because as you mentioned in your story, you're going to see progress. You're never going to see the progress you want towards anything else. But you know what? I want to be able to hike again. Now I can stand. Now I can do a half squat. Now I can do, you're going to see your progress towards it. Now I'm jumping up and over boxes. You explained all the steps, and every step feels good.
Oh, I'm not jumping. I'm stepping, but jumping down. That's the next step.
I gotcha. But see, every one of those goals feels good. And you can see yourself now being able to go camping again and do the things you want to do. So those are important. One thing I feel is one of the biggest misdirections in the world of health today. And that's that it's calories in, calories out, stupid. You should be able to do this. And so people have this mental spot where I have to be able to do this myself, or I'm not good enough. If you have that attitude, you're going to keep doing exactly what you've been doing, and it's going to keep you going exactly where you've been going, because you're not learning anything else. You have to step out of that and realize this isn't your fault. We've been brought down this path by a misdirected government, by a misdirected food supply system, by profit over health, by everything that cigarettes used to represent. Big food represents today. And you have to appreciate this and be in a different space. Be in that space where help is okay. It doesn't diminish me as a person. In fact, health is going to elevate me as a person because I'm going to get to go camping again. Because I'm going to get to be able to play with my kids in the tubes instead of sitting on the park bench with the old people watching. I mean, it's 60 years old today. I'm doing things that I couldn't have dreamed of doing when I was 39 because I have the mobility and I have the energy to do it. It's not your fault. You don't have to get through this yourself, but you do have to understand, while it's not your fault, getting out of it is your responsibility. The new Make America Healthy Again is not going to take personal responsibility for you. Only you can do that. And take that responsibility. Get the help, because you'll be amazed how fast you can turn your health around. Like Laura's mentioned, like my own story proved, like anybody who's been on this journey, it takes weeks or months to get rid of what you've been living with for years or decades.
Oh, this was lovely. Okay, so what I like to do at the end of the day is whoever's left on the screen with me is I love to highlight some of the patterns of the day and some of our favorite things that came up with however long you've been with us or watching online, whichever. So I'm going to start with you, Jessica. Out of everything that you've heard or read or seen or whatever today, what's something that you just want to like re-highlight for people?
I think it's that we're all just doing our best every day. I think that was just such whether it's the kind and then helpful and empathetic, like all of that for me moves into we're just doing our best, and keep that up.
Yep. What about you, Belldon? Did you see any patterns for today?
Well, there's definitely a recurring theme around caring in many different areas. It's like I'm looking at what I wrote down, and it's like all but one person had some form of caring as one of their 3 words. Yep. Right? And that to me is connection and the willingness to allow connection and to go to connection. And I think the 2 that I enjoyed the most was yours, Jessica, and also Art. I loved Art because in his interactions, especially with you, Laura, in his interactions, he put it on display. It was more than just a word, right? He lived into it right there. And yeah, definitely.
Ooh, one of the patterns that I've seen today is very much this refocus on humanity, that we're just not just human, but we're human. Treating people like we're not robots. We are not perfect. We don't know everything or want everything, but we're human. And that means treating each other with kindness, with some grace, with some forgiveness, with some understanding, so that we can all connect better to each other and ourselves.
Can I add a short story to that?
We have about a minute and a half.
When I was going through the early stages of all of this, I drew a picture frame on my bathroom mirror. And on top it said, I am, and at the bottom it said, enough. Aww. And I looked into that mirror with my face in the middle, and I said these words every day for about 6 months. When I finally said, bleep that, and I erased it. Because I'm like, that is the most limiting thing I've ever told myself. I am so much more than enough.
That sounds like building standards. They are minimum standards. Minimum. Go beyond the standard. Okay, that's my little soapbox moment. So I just want to say thank you to everyone, all of our guests, of course, Belldon as my co-host, Jessica as your last minute co-host to help interview you, Belldon. That was great. Thank you. And of course, everyone watching live and on the replay. This is just day 1. We have 4 more days left this week. So join us same bat channel, same bat time tomorrow. You'll find us on Facebook, Instagram, or sorry, not Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Starting at 10 a.m. Eastern is when we go live till approximately 2 p.m. I'm trying to do time zone conversions in my head, Eastern. But I want to ask both of you, just stay on. I'm going to chat with you behind the scenes. Thank you, everyone. Love to see you back tomorrow. I'll catch you then. I'm going to click the end stream button and I'm going to do a little